Hello and welcome to Infamous, the audio podcast. This is Brandon, or Mutilus on the forum.
This is Parker. Go by Twig on forums.
This is Jeremy. I go by Scarlet Witch is better than MODOK. Prove me wrong. Hashtag prove me wrong. / Scarlet Witch.
So
Is that right? Did I do it right?
Is that the email address I send just a picture of MODOK's card to you at? Is that
.com.
That's how the proof works.
.com.
Right?
No, it's okay. Maybe I don't know.
Bold statements from a not bold man. All right, we're moving on.
Is this an argument that I wasn't? Is this an argument that you guys had that I wasn't privy to?
I believe this is called Hot Take Corner, where Jeremy is the mayor of hot takes.
Okay.
Hashtag hot takes.
Maybe we should have a topic that's just hot takes. You say things, don't back it up with any evidence, and move on.
This is the internet. That's exactly the place to do it.
Yeah. All right. All right, so announcements. You don't know why yet, but Parker's probation has been extended. You'll know why if you listen to the pre-ramble. Moving on, we have some doozies of news today. You might even say a whole bank of spoilers. So Parker, why don't you take us into the news?
News. All right. So this news event is special because Jeremy does not know the news. Is some news.
Which is particularly great because Jeremy is the one that listens to all the other podcasts and reads all the Facebook pages because he's bored and has no social life. And so this is amazing.
It's true.
I don't think he's ever not known the news before. And so
it's a cause for celebration, and
I'm quite really behind the curve.
I'm really excited to be the one to tell you about this. So we have Sinister's 2 cards, his tactics cards that come with Mr. Sinister. The first one is called Forced Extraction, and this is actually one we talked about in the podcast when we.
This one was used in the playtest game, so we basically knew what it did. We just didn't have the exact wording.
Right. So we know it unaffiliated, so Sinister can use it since he's going to be unaffiliated because I'm right, and he spends 1 power to play the card. Up to 3 other allied characters within range 3 of him suffer 1 damage. Mr. Sinister gains genetic sample tokens equal to the amount of damage suffered. Now, that we already knew that happened, and that is cool, right? That's cool. I'm just going to go ahead and immediately jump into cloning banks because forced extraction.
Don't know this one.
I'm going to rebuttal to your bullshit statement you just dropped on us. So you're just going to. I know you're trying to sidestep it because being right about something is the only way to get out of purgatory of probation. But you're wrong. Because the majority of character-specific cards are unaffiliated. There's actually very few cards that are both character-restricted and affiliation-restricted. So suck on that.
I'm just saying. I'm going to count this chicken before it hatches because I made a bet about it.
That's the best way to do it. Is just dig more holes. So, Parker, since you're so sure you're ready to upgrade the bet to not only shaved head but shaved beard bet?
No, it's actually not either of those things.
No.
So I'm not ready to upgrade it.
It is 100% a shaved head bet.
It's not. So, the other tactics card, Jeremy, this is the doozy, and you're going to have to take a second to digest this one. This is going to be a slow digester. This is a complex carbohydrate. Are you ready?
I just want to confirm. You're going to read it word for word, slowly for Jeremy, so he can absorb it with his old age brain. Old age brain.
Goody.
We don't want it to ferment. Here we go.
Yeah.
Cloning banks. Unaffiliated. Reactive. During any cleanup phase, an allied Mr. Sinister may play this card. So it's played during cleanup.
Okay.
When this card is played, set it near the battlefield instead of discarding it.
Starting good.
During each clean so it stays in play.
Yeah. Starting good. Cards that don't go away are
cleanup
great.
Phase.
Sorry, I'm cutting.
Yeah. During each cleanup phase, including the one in which this card is played, so on that turn 2, Mr. Sinister may move any number of genetic sample tokens from himself to this card.
He has max 3.
So, yeah. So far, it is a bank. It's called a cloning bank, so it literally can bank genetic sample tokens, including the very first turn of the game. At the cleanup phase. Following so far?
Gotcha.
Okay, so here's the point. If this card has been played during any power phase, you may remove any number of genetic sample tokens from this card and discard it. If you do so, place an unused character from your roster with a threat value equal to half the number of genetic samples or lower into play within range 1 of an allied Mr. Sinister. This unused character gains 3 power and is now part of your squad.
Excuse me?
So basically, long
What
story
the fuck?
short, he puts the cloning banks into play on that turn, and any turn after that during cleanup, he can donate genetic tokens to it from his character card.
I feel we should also
during the
point
power
out
phase.
the card has no cost, so basically it happens on the first turn,
right?
Because there's no reason not to use it.
That's when it's going to happen, yeah. And then if during the power phase, so the very beginning of the turn, he can cash in the cloning bank card and any genetic tokens on it to receive a character from your roster into play within range 1 of him, and it has 3 power. Immediately, it's part of your squad for the rest of the game. But you have to pay the cost of double its threat.
It costs
double
if you have genetic tokens equal to the point cost of the model.
Right.
So if you want a 2-cost character, you need 4 genetic sample tokens.
Okay, I think I get it.
Yeah.
I think I get it. I think it makes Sinister very. So he's a 4-point guy, and his abilities lead you to kind of go, I don't know about that, because he's kind of weird. He's kind of tanky, but playing that card makes him round 0. You have to kill him fast and get rid of him because you don't.
He will make your life hell.
Yeah, I mean, you can't afford that. You can't afford him puking out a 3-point Valkyrie on you.
Right. That's immediately where my mind went. Was that means turn 3 you can just insert Valkyrie into the table ready to go, and there's almost nothing your opponent can do to stop you.
Or Shuri. I mean, why not? Just hang Shuri back, plop out a Shuri, and suddenly your models are getting pushed around. That's phenomenal. I think that makes him a viable splash in a lot of lists that he has no business being in. It's pretty cool. And I like the fact that it allows you to dip outside of what your chosen models are. Mm-hmm. It's really cool too. I mean, that opens a whole different look at play space they can use and do things with, because we haven't seen anything like this. It's pretty cool. So what are you guys' opinion of this? What have you thought about? Because that's the first I've heard of it.
When I first read it, I didn't see the halved, and I thought it was fucking crazy broken. And then I saw the halved, and I was like, okay, well that's a lot more reasonable, because if you do the math, there's only 6 turns. Most games don't go to 6 turns. It's usually over by 5. So you're talking about bringing a meaningful character into the game is probably when you get to the 3-point range. And so 3-point character coming into the game, which is also a convenient math because you can put 3 on a turn. And so you can, on turn 3 is the soonest you can bring anyone out, because you can't do it on turn 2 because you can only put 3 tokens on it. Unless we get a 1-point character, then you can do it. And so the soonest you can bring anybody out is turn 3, and you can bring a 3-point model on turn 3. There's a lot of good 3-point models, especially models that might synergize really well with Sinister, depending on how things work themselves out. I think it's pretty good, but mostly I think it's good because if you put those 2 tactics cards in your list and you have Sinister, you immediately will have people worried about stuff like that happening. And so it might affect what they're playing. They might not want to play a late, a slow, grindy faction against you, because Sinister is already a pretty good brawler. He can kind of get in there and mix it up with people and live for a long time while doing a lot of damage. So they might not want to play more of a beat 'em up slowly over time faction like Asgard. They might want to switch to more of a win quickly with Web Warriors, but you don't have to play those things in your roster. Just having Mr. Sinister and his tactics cards in the roster will change the way people build their lists against you, I think.
I actually read it to be, I really like, it's a value card, right? You're just generating value on the board. And I really like how much it costs, because it doesn't actually cost tokens. It costs the genetic tokens and a tactics card, maybe 2 if you're trying to really supercharge it and get it out early with forced extraction. It's also going to cost you a 4-cost character on the board. If you're playing forced extraction, you want to have 3 characters on the board along with him. So if you're playing a 5-cost leader and Mr. Sinister, it may be hard in every point level to have 2 other characters with him to even start to hurt them. If you play forced extraction, it's hurting your roster while you're gaining other guys. Also, it's not coming out till turn 3 until it's meaningful, and that's if your opponent obliges you. If your Mr. Sinister moves into a situation where your opponent only gives you 1 target for your beam, you can't get enough genetic samples. It's not physically possible because it costs 1 power to shoot genetic samples, and you don't get any power back. So one way to deal with it is just don't attack Mr. Sinister, and if he doesn't do any damage with his strike, like he will never get enough samples over the course of the game. So it is not guaranteed for him.
His strike doesn't give him samples. You mean
right? But he has to do the strike in order to have 1 power to do genetic.
I see what you mean.
So unless he has a way to gain power some other way, he actually can't just keep shooting his genetic beam constantly. He can't do 2 beam drops every turn, unless you're obliging him by hurting him. And if you're hurting him fast enough, it doesn't matter, right? You just kill him. Yeah. Like Jeremy said, I think if you have a big brawly squad that's super brawly, then you try to take him down. But if you have a manipulative squad, like a scenario-based squad, you just control him. You just push him away and let him move and do a beam to hit 1 of your guys and get 1 genetic token and jack off the rest of the game, not being able to ever activate his thing. So
I was gonna say, keep in mind he has a mind control effect as well, so he can kind of line people up also.
But how's he gonna mind control? How's he gonna do a 3-cost mind control and a 1-cost non-gaining power attack to gain the tokens? Like, they balanced him really well, because it sounds like, oh man, if he gets 6 tokens by turn 3, he's gonna make a 3-cost guy. That's so strong. And then you look at the math and you're like, oh, actually, unless your opponent is really obliging you and goes ham for Mr. Sinister and sends 3 guys at him so he can line up beam 3s constantly and constantly be giving tokens over to his cloning bank. And if you shelled out for forced extraction, so it cost you 2 tactics cards in your roster, and you made your roster more limited in order to make sure you had him, along with at least 3 other characters. There's a lot of things that you have to do to give yourself an extra character, and your opponent also has to be part of that interaction. I think it's a really, really amazing payoff. I think it's a really great payoff for this really good card. And if you really want to take Mr. Sinister, this is a really cool payoff for him. But when I looked at it, what I compared it to are cards like Deal with the Devil. And I was like, Deal with the Devil functionally gives me a new Ghost Rider, only I can be proactive rather than reactive with it. I can just send my Ghost Rider super aggressively at people, and I will get a new Ghost Rider. I'll get a new 5-point character. And so I have this super offensive powerhouse that's just in the middle of things, wrecking things and tearing everything apart, and I will get a second Ghost Rider if my opponent decides to commit.
I don't
but with
think
Mr. Sinister, it's the opposite.
That's a fair comparison. You're saying that on one hand, I can refuse to attack your model, and on the other hand, you can't refuse to attack my model. I don't think that's really a fair example.
What I'm saying is, on the other side, is Mr. Sinister has the opposite problem, right? Where if you just wail on Mr. Sinister, and then his thing doesn't work. Floating Banks just sits there and does nothing.
It's pretty hard to take him out before anything. Anyway, so there's several things I want to respond to because you kind of monologued there a bit. So
sorry.
First off, his mind control only costs 2. There's also because his cards are unaffiliated, you don't need to play him in any specific faction. And there are a lot of factions that will allow him to do his job better if all you want to do is the cloning. You can put him in Avengers, his mind control would cost 1. You put him in X-Men, Cyclops can allow other people to spend his genetic splicing cost for him. You could play...
Do they? I thought it was a minimum of 1. I thought Cyclops said minimum 1.
I will check.
I'm not calling you a liar. I'm just saying I don't know if that actually works.
You shouldn't call me a liar then if you don't want to call me a liar.
Nope, it's minimum 1.
is
Nobody
minimum
can pay his cost.
Okay, so you can't do it with Cyclops' leadership ability, which is another reason the Cyclops is garbage. But you can use like no matter the cost or advanced R&D to move some power around, which a lot of people are already playing in other lists. You could do Inhumans to hand some power out. Because he is very faction flexible, you don't need to worry too much about that stuff. And I think the real power of it is really forcing your opponent to play around it. Like if they're going to ignore Mr. Sinister or completely dedicate their army to trying to kill him, if your opponent is forced to play a certain way, you can usually manipulate that as well. Like, knowing my opponent is basically locked into one of two playstyles is good for me. And the main thing, and you are absolutely right, this is a very high cost, ability. This isn't something you're just going to do out of convenience. This is the hardest card to pull off in the game currently. But you're also getting to add a character to the roster after you know what your opponent's playing and you know the game state, which is why I think it's more impactful than a lot of people realize. Like, knowing if you need Gwen or Valkyrie or Punisher or whatever the situation might call for, you're getting to make a live in-game decision on adding a model to your list, and nothing else does that. That's pretty cool.
I actually really liked it. The first thing I thought was actually Guardians, because Guardians has a lot of really cheap characters that are awesome, like high premium characters, and you can easily fit in like a Guardians roster plus like a Sinister and a Valkyrie is a great just like roster. Just go ahead, and then you've got Sinister basically because Star-Lord is so cheap. Sinister can easily fit in there as a 7-point module to get the leader and Sinister, and then you put any other combination of guys you want. And you could easily get Force Extraction off at the beginning of the game. Heck, hurting Drax by 1 is actually not bad. It actually makes some of his attacks stronger. Yeah. So they're like, I actually really liked it for. I originally thought about Asgardians because Asgardians could heal after Forced Extraction. Also, Valkyrie's great, and she might like to go down in a Asgardians list. But after I thought about it, I was like, oh man, how do you play Asgardians with another 4 cost that you really want to play? That seems like if you ever get a lower point cost thing, you're going to lose Forced Extraction and Cloning Blade because you probably can't play Sinister because you're only going to have 3 characters, and then you're starting to feel like Sinister's choking you. So unless you felt like,
having played a lot of Asgard myself, it's very easy to deploy them all in that bubble if you put Sinister in the middle, and he kind of wants to be in the middle anyway because of the way his kit works. And so you'll be able to play Forced Extraction on turn 1, which is the only turn you will ever play it. And so turn 1 you play Forced Extraction, which is fine. You take the damage on everybody, and then they can immediately heal it if they want to. You don't have to, but you can. And actually, Asgard really likes 4-point models because they generally are fielding 2 5-point models most of the time. And so just the way the points work out, you're putting 1 or 2 5-point models down, or you have a 3-point Valkyrie. So it actually, 4-point models fit in their faction very well. Unfortunately, you'd be giving up Enchantress, but you're trading Enchantress for another Mind Controller. It might work out. I don't know. Jeremy?
So think that it's not that hard to imagine beaming every time for 2 models. I mean, it really isn't. It's pretty easy to just get 2 models in the beam and constantly do that. But by the time you want to do it, I mean, turn 3, you're going to puke out a model. Like, that's just fact. It's all about who can fit that 4-pointer and like what use can they get out of them. I think the swing is going to be brutal, and I think really good players are going to be able to use this, and it's going to be devastating. That's devastating to have another 3 points dropped on you.
Well, if you actually do it as well, like we're talking about these long, close, drawn-out games, just imagine on turn 5, like, MODOK lands on your head. Like, what do you do? Like, the game ends because that's going to swing anything that was close. Like, immediately MODOK drops down with 3 power and just nukes your team.
Or a 4-point Corvus. I mean, there's a lot of 4-point models. If you can manage to get 8, you are fucking dead. Like, another 4 points drops on you. If you play, I mean, that's essentially playing 18 to 22. Like, that isn't going to work.
Well, so the way the math works out is you can get a 2 or a 3 on turn 3. You can get a 4 on turn 4, or you can get a 6 coster on turn 5, right? Is my math right there? because you're getting 4 donations of 3 potentially. If you get everything to line up, you could drop a 6-pointer on 5. Yes. So like you could put Magneto down with 3 power.
Yeah, then the world just ends.
Yeah,
like you're done.
But-
anything near you dies, and your army just succeeds. The problem is, are you in an insurmountable hole or not at that point?
Yeah, that's the thing for me. If you have a 4-point character on the board doing that much work all the time, and you can and he's just been sitting there not even needing the tactics cards, maybe the 2 tactics cards that you brought, I think you've already won. Like something terrible has gone up for your opponent, or something amazing has happened for you.
Oh well, yeah. I don't think that that's a likely possibility. Like the 5-coster thing is more of like a pipe dream kind of thing. I could maybe see a 4 if things are just going okay enough to where you don't feel the need to use it, and then you wait an extra turn. But remember that, like, I think people are also looking at this as like, all right, well, so the first thing you're going to do is move up, get your tokens, and then hold them for the rest of the turn. It's like, you don't need to activate Sinister first. Like, he could easily walk up towards the end of the turn, like last activation, move somebody off of a secure point into a line with another person, blast them twice, and then like, all right, I have 3 tokens, your turn, and then just move them over. And it's like,
well,
so
he would need to have 4 power for that, or 3 power in Avengers. Like that this is not. It's not impossible. That they did a really good job of making it difficult to do everything you want to do with them.
I don't think it's going to be as hard to get power on them as you think it will be. There's also, keep in mind, there's a lot of scenarios that add extra power as well. So if you know your character needs an above average amount of power, you can play the cube mission, you can play Infinity Formula, which he's good on both of those because, he's Sinister.
He seems to be... I was wondering about him until just hearing about this card moments ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely his signature card. That's really cool. It sends him into the next level, which is great. I think it makes him into a great character. So if you take him, you can actually have a plan and do some shit. It's pretty cool.
Hey Parker, I got a faction for you. Ready? Cabal.
Hmm?
Let's put Sinister in Cabal, guys. If only he could damage people with his attacks to get power.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to mention, let's freaking Cosmic Invigorate Sinister, maybe. Oh my god.
Yeah. Actually, it wouldn't blow my mind if he was in Cabal. It wouldn't blow my mind.
I've been thinking about just hearing all this stuff. Like, I feel like Criminals, he would work great too. Sits there and takes the damage and whatnot and gains his power and pukes out a new dude. There you go.
I think if you can land a 2-drop or a 3-drop on turn 3, you're really going to like your Mr. Sinister investment. I think if you wait any longer than that, you're probably going to be disappointed, or you already won. But it's going to be scary when you didn't need those 2 tactic slots, you didn't need those 4 points for anything else, and you just dropped a 3 cost because you were able to, you had the great scenario to make sure he lined up his beams. Like as soon as he lines up a 2 beam twice, and you're like, here we go.
Well, I was gonna say 60% of the time you can play with one of those, because it doesn't matter which color you get to pick. 60% of the time you can choose snare that gives extra power.
Yeah.
Bit 4 pizza rolls out of 5.
It's a lot of pizza rolls.
Another cool thing about cloning banks is even if you're not dropping Valkyrie or Drax or one of those like premium combat models, you can also just drop like a Black Widow. Go over there. Mm-hmm. Just like, I want to win the game right now.
Quicksilver.
And there is
do the math on a surprise Quicksilver with 3 power.
Yeah,
like the game changes.
Yep. All of a sudden there's a Quicksilver, and here we go. Like there's a brand new objective game being played because I put this awesome objective model down.
Miles.
Like there's a lot of,
hey, surprise Miles, he Venom blasts you. I'll take your token. Goodbye. And you're like, what? Like, he just like runs away. Like, you son of a bitch.
He comes in with 3 power.
Yeah.
And he has stealth. And there he goes.
Gets placed, Venom blast, immediately moves. You're like, ugh, like, damn it. So I was
I enjoy this space that they've created with it.
That's actually a really cool.
It's a
thing.
really good choice.
Web Warriors.
Yeah, if anyone near him has a token, he just gets in, gets out. He would be good in Web Warriors as well, because I mean he's just good. Extra rerolled defense down him would make him a little bit harder to kill.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't do any other rerolls though. So also the cool thing, his recumbent disintegration doesn't spend his genetic sample tokens.
No, it does not.
Right, so he can still do a 6 dice AoE 3 for 6 power if he gets enough power. And then after the attack is resolved, enemy characters within range of this attack suffer 1 damage if you get a crit, wild, and a hit. Which is unlikely, but if you roll like 3 or 4 times, because AoE 3 is a big AoE. I've hit 4 people with Thanos' Power of the Cosmos multiple times.
There's worth mentioning, if you don't like forced extraction costing you damage, you can play him in Guardians, and then Drax likes the damage. Groot can heal it, and Nebula automatically heals it. You can play him with Wolverine. You can play him with Sabretooth. You can play him with Deadpool. Like, all these characters are just going to get their health back, so who cares? Like, there are lots of characters that have almost no cost for being force extracted on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was talking with John earlier, and he brought up that point.
That's why I thought of Guardians, actually, because there are 3 characters in Guardians that would give absolutely no craps about being force extracted, because they're healing automatically, or they can heal, or they like the damage. And the total list would be, what would that be, 15 points for Drax, Groot, Nebula, Sinister, Star-Lord. That's pretty
Rocket.
cheap for that many characters.
You're not taking Rocket.
I think you can. I'm just saying that's the minimum. That's like the package if you want to do that whole package on purpose.
The only problem I have with Guardians is they kind of want the characters they want. And so if you're doing like a standard Guardian list, you've got Rocket, Groot, Drax, Star-Lord. It's like, okay, well, now what? Like, and probably Nebula as well. It's like, you don't need another one of those. What you need is not another cheap, efficient character. What you need is like, I don't know, like a 4-point beater, really. Like an Angela type model.
Maybe what you need is an Angela. That's why it was so exciting to get Angela,
I'd be so mad if all of a sudden a Wolverine plopped out. How hard he is to kill just randomly, and by the time you've already lost a character or two, and all of a sudden Wolverine's like in your face. Jesus.
So what I initially thought about was like, what if you kind of circumvent the game and you're like, all right, well, I play Ultron. It's like, well, Ultron can't die in a 3-turn game. It's like, in a 3-turn game, how are you gonna kill Ultron? So it's like turn 3, here's Ultron. You're like, oh, well, it'd be turn 4 now that we know it's halved. So it's just like, that would just be annoying. But yeah.
I was also thinking you could drop out Okoye for 2 points and have a protector all of a sudden for Sinister.
Right. But you could also
Black Dwarf.
Well, so you could drop out. Well, we need to think about like what's actually going to happen, because I don't think realistically you'll ever see a 4-point model or higher played.
In a game
it'll
that
be
2s and 3s.
Yeah, not in a game that matters. But so if we start looking at 3-point characters, you've got Okoye, but you also have Luke Cage coming out next month, and so Luke Cage is a high health model with damage reduction and good defensive stats that appears in the middle of the table with his like intimidation bodyguard thing where he forces enemies within 2 to attack him. That is super annoying because he also gets across the table. And honestly, now that Cabal is getting new releases, maybe Crossbones. Crossbones appearing in the middle of the table with 3 power isn't that bad. Especially when he gets better because he actually has useful things to do.
You could do a surprise Iron Fist.
Yeah, but
I don't know if you're going to get enough power on that turn.
He's bad, though.
But you could get a surprised whoopah!
You get a surprised opponent is what you get. He's like, why are you playing that terrible model? I'm just giving
Mysterio would be really good for 3. Yeah.
We talked about. I actually think Iron Fist has gumption because we talked about how he's got to have a big target on his back. So if Sinister can drop him in the middle of the game later, when people are already engaged, people are already weak, and there's still they still have 1 5-point model, their MODOK or whatever that's up, and you're just like, well, go ahead and let Iron Fist hit him now, as opposed to earlier in the game where he would have just been nullified or controlled or killed, but Iron Fist is now too close to everything.
Yeah, but the problem is he's missed all
do.
that extra power he would have gotten for just being deployed. Because he gets the extra power every turn. If he comes in on turn 3, he's missed 4 power.
Yeah, I guess I see your point. He's probably not going to be able to do
That's why I think it says 3 powers, because if they were in the game the whole time, every character would have 3 power at this point. And so that's why I think they came up with the 3 power thing.
So does that make Valkyrie worse, or is Valkyrie just always good, so who cares?
Valkyrie's fine, because she only needs 3 power.
Right.
And if she's deploying like within range of somebody, it's a lot easier to get your stuff done. I guess we could just do this. We could just sort this by threat, and we can just look at all the different options. Why is my website lagging? There we go. All right, so
go ahead.
Nebula, Okoye, Rocket, Toad, Wong, Ant-Man. Oh, there you go, Ant-Man. That'd be a good one, right? Zemo.
Zemo's not horrible.
Zemo, yeah, but I mean, he's kind of fast is the point. It'd be okay.
Yeah.
Any 3-point model would obviously be better than not a 3-point model, but Black Widow, Crossbones, Crystal, Deadpool, Doc Ock.
Crystal's not horrible because she likes being deployed kind of in the middle of things, and she just doesn't want to die. It's an interesting choice.
Yeah, it'd be okay probably. Yeah, the big ones I see are. I wonder if Surprise Groot would be good. I mean, Ghost Spider and Miles are obviously big. Miles more so.
Lockjaw would be annoying as hell.
Lockjaw could. Punisher would be an interesting choice because based on the health state of all of your models, like if everyone's about to get dazed, dropping Punisher might be better because you just get 3 free tokens and immediately start going crazy. Ooh. Oh, you're 1 power short. If they started with 4 power, you could drop Punisher and play Doomed Prophecy, and they never get a chance to attack him. And he's like, "Let's go!" Like, oh no, that would be amazing.
Punisher, all you got, and Doomed Prophecy.
Yeah, just like wipe the board out of literally thin air. Just like surprise, guys. He just wastes everybody. Yeah, I think the biggest one I'm seeing right now is Miles. Miles, then Valkyrie, then maybe Drax. But I think Valkyrie's more flexible. But if he's already there, then, Drax is also good. Oh, Deadpool will also be good, because Deadpool is actually pretty solid once he's engaged.
So, just to round up this whole topic, I really think that Cabal, if we're going to talk about a faction he goes in, Cabal is really solid.
Cabal's very solid.
I don't think there's one that's better right now, aside from maybe Brotherhood.
Inhumans.
Anybody who can puke up a bunch of free power seems good, right?
Oh, that's true. I didn't even think about Brotherhood giving him an extra power, because Brotherhood could almost guaranteed get him 2 power a turn.
Yep.
And giving him cover makes it really hard to go get him. Yeah, Brotherhood would be a pretty solid choice, because you've obviously got the options of the Weapon X guys for healable people. Yeah, I think there's a lot of the mutant stuff he's really good with. I think Inhumans, because he's a really good model to exploit bitter rivals. And he's also good if you can pile power on him. And the dog, being able to move him into positions to beam people and potentially last minute save him is also really strong. I'm literally chewing glass right now. I hate the Inhumans, but it would be a good choice.
All right, Lockjaw. If you really went ham on Sinister, you're like, I'm going to stop this from happening. You're like, no.
He teleports back and then beams your guys, and you're like, great. And then this is the worst. Yeah, so Cabal, Brotherhood, Inhumans, I think are probably the best choices. And then, as we were saying, I think probably Miles, Valkyrie, and Deadpool are probably also Luke Cage for a different reason. So those are probably the 4 best turn 3 summons. And Quicksilver, also Quicksilver. And Shuri, but I don't know if Shuri's as good if she's just put in the middle of the table, but she's probably fine. Alrighty, well that was fun. This is a really interesting card. It's probably the most interesting card in the game right now.
I agree.
Changes the way you have to think about stuff.
If your opponent plays Sinister, you definitely have to gut check yourself and be like, oh shit, how do I plan to deal with that? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just kill him. Like, he's not unkillable, so that.
You say that until you try and kill somebody when you have to, and just watch them be invincible for 10 minutes.
True.
One nice thing is if you do actually just daze him, you don't have to kill him completely. If you can daze him before he activates, then even if he pops back up with 6 power, he's only going to gain 3 tokens that next turn, right? So you can really limit what he can do if you can down him. Like, there are a lot. How many times have I seen a 4-point character, Magneto just points and it dies, right? Just like, I'm Magneto. Now you're gone. And here's the other bit that I like about the value. Mm-hmm. He's 4 points on your opponent's roster. So if you kill him, not only are you eliminating cloning banks, but you're also eliminating 4-point characters that he took. That's 4 points of your opponent's roster. It's not worthless to kill Sinister.
Well, so I'm pretty sure the way this is going to get ruled, because I've already thought about this, is if you daze him while he has 3 tokens, he can still donate them. And so it's really going to be...
That makes sense.
Because he's not playing the card. So that's why you need to play it on turn 1. Get the card out there. And then, because you can interact with cards while dazed. You just can't play cards while dazed. And so, that's going to be the
But he's not gaining
question.
But he's not gaining the tokens when he's being damaged. So if you can just knock him down...
Well, he doesn't get tokens for damage. He gets tokens when he does Does he gain genetic samples when he takes damage?
No.
Oh, okay, I just missed
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, so he would have... If he goes first and gets his 3 tokens, just never spend them until you summon somebody. Because if you do the math, there's no way they're going to daze you on 1, right? So turn 1, you do your force extraction, you donate 3. Turn 2, as soon as a situation occurs where you can guaranteed get 3, you go get 3. And then it doesn't matter if they daze you, you donate your 3, next turn you summon your guy. There's nothing they can do.
Well, there is something they can do.
If they get you before you activate turn 2. Yeah.
If your opponent is playing Thanos, Sabretooth, and Magneto, I don't think you ever get cloning banks. I don't think it ever happens. Because how are you going to beam 2 of them, right? Because your opponent's not going to let that happen. And your component will just kill Sinister, and that's it. So I think Sinister's a great plan, but I think it's a really, really, really tough sell into a super elite, low model count force. If you play against that, I don't know how Sinister reliably gets more than a 2 cost off. Maybe he gets a 2 cost off.
Well, they have to commit as well, and you get the last activation if they're running a 3-character list. I'm not saying that that's going to be enough to win the game or get the cloning battle, but I think you can go get 3 genetic samples at some point. You might not get it off on turn 3, but I think it will happen. Like, if Sabretooth just doesn't participate in the battle, I guess. But, they have to eventually bring 2 people forward.
Look at it this way, too. Like, most of the times we're talking about a fair game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both players line up. You have a similar list, and do your thing. Whatever that might be. You got 4 models, you got 5 models, whatever. You're not talking about some sort of I have all 2-point characters. There's 7 of them. Deal with that. Yeah. No. Or I have 2 models. Haha. This is just kind of you're playing a fair game. What happens on a fair game? There's sometimes you're not going to take Sinister because it ain't going to be the answer for you.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think any game against Thanos and Magneto or a super team, I don't think, because summoning a 3-point character doesn't help you. You need effective characters. Yeah.
It just gives you victory points against Black Order.
The only thing is if you could set up, if he ends up being a Cabal member and you could do Dark Rain on one of them and he's doing 4 beam attacks on them, that might matter, but that's about all he would end up doing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I think this is a fun topic. It was good to talk about that.
It's a cool card.
Yeah, very cool card. Very excited that there's a card. I think it was properly analyzed as the power of it, and it feels like they put enough stopgaps in place to make enough of a deterrent to where this isn't the obvious thing to do.
Right. I like the value feels fair. It doesn't feel like an unfair value.
Yeah, it feels like you earned that character if you get it to happen.
Yep.
Alrighty.
Isn't that a great feeling?
Yeah.
When your opponent does something that feels when your opponent does something and you're like, well, you worked really hard for that, so let's go ahead and play around it. Like, I really like that.
I'm going to take this opportunity to bash 40K real quick. And
Go ahead.
I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to not make it an actual 40K bash. But for the last 2 weeks, every time someone's played a game of 40K at the shop, I've heard the discussion, so what do you think about infinite attacks? Because there was a wording and an ability that apparently is semi-ambiguous, and the terminology basically says anything that doesn't either hit or damage, roll another attack until it does, basically is what it says. But it's just kind of like an open-ended British phrasing thing that it obviously doesn't mean make infinite attacks. But if you read it a certain way and believe hard enough, it does. So, which has always been 40K logic. There's always been wording to where, well, if you read it from this point of view, hoping that's how it works, it kind of reads that way. And it's yeah, I guess, in La La Land, wherever the fuck you are. And so that's that. It's just I'm so happy I don't have to deal with that shit, at all. It's just, I have to listen to the arguments for hours on end.
And even without poor wording on cards, there's also cards that you get done. When you're across when you're on your side of the table, your opponent's the other side, and they do something, you're like, well, that's totally unfair. I can't even do anything remotely like that. I guess I should have just been playing all your models so I could do it back to you. And that's the way some games go. We've all played those games where eventually it just became exactly the same models versus exactly the same models because you were an idiot to do anything else. I like that this game. Yeah,
Guild Ball is very much like that. This game is actually kind of similar to Guild Ball because it's very scenario oriented, and you have almost always a similar squad size, and you have a roster of people to choose from. So there's a lot of similarities from the core concepts. Game plays completely differently, but there was a faction in Guild Ball when it first came out, the Morticians. Their leader let you take control of an enemy model and activate them for the turn. And just imagine in this game if Thanos said spend 4 power, take your opponent's next turn. Just imagine, all right, you win. It's over. There's no... Yeah. And that's basically what happened, is everyone that played Morticians just won all their fucking games. And it was really lame. And so every time we, saw somebody happening to somebody, we're just not sure what you do about this. I'm sure really good players could overcome this. But every time you saw, top tables in our areas, it was always just, double Morticians. I'm like, what the hell is the point of this? Anyway.
Yep.
So, moving on, we're going to go to playing currently. So I have a little bit of this is kind of segue between news and playing currently. We have a lot of local people talking about playing. And now that the COVID restrictions have been lifted and people are getting back into it, and there's the X-Force and the other mutants are coming out, there's a father and his son that have been buying up the stuff, and they're excited to come play. I think they're going to come up next week. I'm going to give them a demo game, and then they're hopefully going to come up to the event I'm going to run in, not this weekend, but next weekend. I'm going to run an event on the 22nd. So they're planning on coming. The Moody brothers are planning on coming up. They've been playing, I guess, between them fairly often. And just a lot of people have been coming up and talking about the game. Tyler's coming back. Parker? You don't like Tyler anymore?
Oh, really?
Right. Yeah, no, Tyler's coming back.
Wait, no.
Soon.
Wait, to the state?
Yes. Well, first he's going to Florida, I guess, but then he's coming back. They're going on vacation to Florida or something. But anyway, so Tyler's moving back. And Tyler apparently is excited to play Marvel. He's either going to start Marvel or Legion, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be Marvel. And then his buddy...
he and I have been talking about it while he was been away.
And then Shane, Shane, he played Destiny. He also is going to play whatever Tyler decides. And so Shane's probably going to get in as well. Not to mention just the local people that have been hiding are going to start coming out again. So I'm thinking we might actually start getting a real community going again. It might not just be us.
Be awesome.
We're out of the dark times. All right. So that's what I'm really excited about. And currently playing, I have played another game with criminals, so I'm basically a master. You guys play anything new you're excited about?
I played Black Order. Again, oh God, we need to get more people up at the store because I'm just starting to feel bad. It's hurting feelings.
Just grinding bones.
Just
you take them, you put them in your little like wheel of grindiness, and you're dead.
Every time I play a list I really want to play, it turns out it makes people sad, and I hate it.
Well, yeah, like, you need to start doing the thing I do, where it's like, oh, you have no idea what you're doing. I guess I'm playing Inhumans. They suck, and I just throw the game.
I usually, you know what's funny is because generally when I do that, it's against you. When I would just throw together a list, I'll be like, let's just play a game, whatever, fuck it.
But when you show up for other people, you're like, let's fucking go. Like, I've been building.
Well, because I'll have an idea and I get excited.
Yeah,
it always turns out that way. I'm like, okay, I've been thinking about this for the last 3 weeks. Let's see what happens. No,
I know Jeremy knows Bobby Parker. He was one of the guys that was up at the store when you came up to play in the Vibranium Heist.
Okay.
And I played Bobby, I think 2 or 3 like demo games, and each time I was playing like core box Avengers, like nothing impressive. And I tried to throw those games. I tried real hard, but it was like Iron Man repulsor blasts you 7 hits, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but you're gonna lose apparently. And there's like okay, 3 crits into 3 wilds. All right, I guess you're dead. Next person. It's like everything I did just exploded. And then he attacked me. I take 0 damage on a round. I'm like, oh my god. And so I'm surprised Bobby's still playing. It wasn't my fault. Yeah, it's D8's bro.
Well, that's exactly the sort we need.
Yeah,
that's exactly the sort we need.
We need the War Machine mentality that will like not quit ever. It's like, yeah. What did you do today? I went to a store and just swallowed Warjacks for 3 hours. I'm ready to play now. Like, oh god.
Yeah, that is exactly the sort we need. Mm-hmm. I like who was it? Who was it that one day he went and played in a different community and he realized, Jason. Oh my gosh, who's that?
That was Jason.
That's right. Jason went and played some other people. He goes, oh my god.
We played, I think it was like 12 games a month. No, it was like 8 games a month. Played basically twice a week for 9 months. And at which point he told me, hey, I think I'm going to quit War Machine. I'm like, why? We have such a great time. He's like, well, I haven't won a game. He's like, what do you mean you haven't won a game? He's like, I have never won a game of War Machine. I was like, what? You've been playing for like a year. How is that possible? Never? And he's like, never. I'm like, oh. Don't worry, you're fine. Like, you're actually really good at this game. We went to Adepticon and he started playing in Scramblers. He refused to sign up for the big events because he's like, no, there's no reason for me to be in those events. Sign up for like 4 Scramblers, won all 4 Scramblers. He's like, this game is really easy. It's like, yeah, it's because you're playing us and we are like super hardcore. And so he literally was just like rolling top of 2ing people. Like he assassinated like 11 of the 12 people on top of 2. And he's like, why are these people so bad at positioning?
I remember him walking up just like bright. His eyes were so bright. Yeah. He's like, I'm really good at this game. Like, yeah, because you've been basically Piccolo playing with 800-pound weights on your back and losing all the time. And you just got to take them off, bro.
How did you learn chess? Oh, I learned from this like 8-time world champion. How did you learn? We just went up to his cottage and played 5 times a day for a year. And you're like, oh, so you have no idea how good most people are.
Yeah,
it was pretty funny.
It's good. Yeah, so I played Black Order, their deal, and it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. That's it.
Black Order is incredibly strong when your opponent has no idea how to play against Black Order.
He specifically says every single time we play, I should have played them because that's the one I like.
Yeah.
It's not my fucking fault.
Mm-hmm.
What?
It's like, how much
Jason,
do you like this?
Every time Jason loses a game, he's like, I'm going to go play Black Order again. Because I at least have fun playing Black Order because I know I'm going to lose. And I'm like, Jason, don't say that. like.
And that's true. He did lose against Black Order. Is that what he meant?
Yeah. Well, he doesn't... He hasn't played consistently enough to know because the whole point of Black Order is it's the Scorpion. You throw the thing over there, you drag somebody to hell and they die, and then the next turn happens, you do it again. That's how Black Order works. And if you don't do that, you lose. And he just for some reason has never learned that because he only plays them after he's lost, and so he plays 1 game every 2 weeks. So he'll show up, lose a game, 2 weeks later show up with Black Order, lose that game, show up 2 weeks later, play a game, lose, 2 weeks later with Black Order, lose again. It's like, It's like, yeah, you have zero muscle memory with this faction. Every time you're playing it, you're learning it basically because you're playing it once a month.
Yeah, the mechanics, the rules are simple in this game, but the game is not simple by any means. And if you don't have the reps, it takes reps, man. Like the game just takes a bunch of reps and some thought.
Yeah. The important thing about this game is because, like in War Machine, the game within game was positioning, right? Is knowing how to position your models to where they have the most effect and the least vulnerabilities. In X-Wing, it's spatial awareness. It's knowing how big a 3 bank is on the table compared to where your models are. That is 100% of X-Wing. And so in this game, in Marvel, it's 100% understanding the tempo of the turn. You can win with anything in this game if you're better at tempo than your opponent. If you know when to activate the models at the right time, who you should be attacking, where you should be putting your models to force your opponent to make bad decisions, that's really where this game is. And he has not mastered that yet. He might know really well how to play his individual models, but he hasn't gotten around to... He hasn't played enough games in a row to understand that interaction.
You need to be able to look at the board, look at the game state, and go, and I'm not there yet.
Yeah, this guy
you'll be able
needs
to look
go.
at the game state. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. I need to be able to look at the game state and go, this guy needs to go and needs to deal with that guy based upon like health, status, special effects, and tokens. Can I look at all the tokens and all the damage cards out there and go this guy to this guy? That's what I need to be able. That's what you need to be able to do. That's the game within the game.
I'm really bad at teaching people that because I do not know why, but I know which model it is. But if you're like, all right, you need to go with this guy, and he's like, why? It's like, I have no clue, but it's that one. And he's like, what? It's like, I don't know why. It's in my brain. It says that one. Like, go, and then like it works out.
I think a good percentage of what you are going to do, regardless of outcome, doesn't matter. But the small percentage that does matter has to be done right. Mm-hmm. Just so much of that going on at all times. Like some things just don't matter and don't get worked up about it. But the things that do matter, like, are so important and critical. Like, you got to do those things right. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have that formula together in your head every turn, then yeah, it's going to go south for you.
The macro decisions you make in Marvel are far more important than the micro decisions, which is kind of the opposite of other games. Like in War Machine, and it's partially because it's a combined turn game, but like War Machine, knowing what order a unit does, what action they're going to do, who each model is going to attack, like those are the important decisions. Like, are you going to boost this individual attack roll? Like, what the individual model is doing is very important in War Machine. But in Marvel, it's all about the flow of the turn. And so, like, what Valkyrie does is actually not super important as long as she moves to where she needs to move to and attacks the person she's supposed to attack. All that other stuff, not as important. Like, if you're going to use your spending attack, if you're going to, like, boost with your, like, add blanks to your hits or whatever. And so all that stuff, like, not super important. Like, are you going to spend 2 to add 2 extra defense dice to your roll? Not super important. Did you activate the right model at the right time? Super, super important. And so it's just kind of, like, reversed of a lot of miniatures games. Like, you could play with just generic model X that has, like, 3s everywhere and generic attacks. And you're like, yeah, that's fine. Like, it doesn't really matter. Alrighty.
I concur.
So moving on, our main topic today, we're going to do some more tactics ratings, but we're probably not going to get to too many today. We've been a little bit long on some other stuff. Parker, do you have the stuff pulled up?
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. So it looks like today we're going to be starting with acute senses. Why don't you take us into it?
Oh, I have escort to safety.
Let me double check then. You are correct. I was on the wrong line. Go for it, sir.
All right. Escort to safety. Unaffiliated reactive card. When an enemy character targets an allied character, another allied character within range 3 of the targeted character may spend 3 power to play this card. Push the targeted allied character towards the other character short. If, at the end of the push, the targeted character is outside of the attacker's range or line of sight, the attack ends. If it is the attacker's activation and the attack did not target multiple characters, they may immediately choose to make another action.
So this is a bad version of the Lifesaver ability on Gwen.
Right.
It costs 1 more power and is 1 range shorter between the person saving and the person being saved. But other than that, it's effectively the same wording. I actually really like this card. This is another card that would actually make a lot of rosters for me if we had like 10 slots. Knowing that this is there, kind of like Gwen, once it's mostly about the threat of using it more than actually using it. It's kind of like Bodyguard. Like, it's going to change the math on, like, okay, well, I can just move over here and try and kill this guy. But when they have a Bodyguard nearby, it's like, well, if I use my spending attack, he'll just Bodyguard the big one. Or if I, boost the roll or something. Like, so you spend more time thinking about how to get around it. Kind of like Lethal Protector. They're constantly worried about you using it. So it affects their choices. Or they'll forget about it, and then it's even worse because they haven't planned for it.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, if you think this card is bad, then you've never played against Ghost Spider.
Yeah.
Like, because the first time you play against Ghost Spider, and when she is paired up with somebody like Venom, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go kill Venom. You're like, no, you're not. You're like, oh, okay, that's it. That's why this card has a lot of potential. I agree with you. This is not just a gotcha card. It's also like a great threat that just sits there. It stinks that it's a little expensive to play early without having something like Asgardians or the ability to gain 2 power with a hurt character. That's one of the only things about it that's tough, is that you want to be able to escort to safety on turn 2. Because usually Gwen only pops off her ability once, maybe twice in a game. It's the very first time when you really rub the Alpha Strike, right? You can destroy the Alpha Strike for your opponent. But it being 3 power makes it so hard to play for a lot of factions. But if you have a character or faction that gets 3 power, that turn 2 escort to safety could be so awesome.
I do want to point out that because this is a tactics card and not an ability on a character, it actually opens up more problems because you don't know which way they're going to get pulled if you have multiple people within range 3. And so if you got like a character in the middle of the table and 2 buddies on the other side, you can't position to where the pull won't take them out of range, because either way can get them pulled out. And so it actually creates a whole different can of worms, but being more expensive, you are correct, is going to limit the ability to play it early. But I think generally you're not trying to play this card on turn 2, so.
Oh, really? Because that's what I hate Gwen's abilities on turn 2. Because you can overextend, your threatening piece, and then there's nothing I can do about it on my turn 2. All right, but that's the best part of Gwen, is that you can go ahead and just throw that important piece out there, knowing that Gwen's got their back.
Yeah, I guess.
I think it's fantastic.
But yeah, you don't have to play it with Gwen. Like, you can play it with like a higher gaining power. Like, you can play it with somebody that just went and got power from attacking or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this card. I think it's pretty similar to Lethal Protector. A little bit less, probably, but it also isn't character restricted, so. Let's see. So we gave Lethal Protector a 6. I also think it's similar to Last Minute Save. Obviously very different, but that's kind of similar in concept, as you're trying to save a buddy from an enemy. The important part about Last Minute Save is it's basically foolproof, right? Like, you just pay the power, you're not dead. But where Escort to Safety, you actually prevent the thing from happening, which is sometimes better because you don't take all the damage from being killed first. Jeremy, what are your thoughts?
It's expensive. There's other ways to do it, and I just can't imagine plugging this into my 1 of 8. It's okay. It's okay. It does a job. It does exactly what it says it does. But again, for 3 power and 1 of 8 cards is a really hard press to put that in a list.
Jeremy, I'm just confirming, when you said there's other ways to do it, you don't mean other tactics cards, right? You just mean other characters?
Yeah, other characters. Also, like, there's, if you're trying not to get someone killed, then sacrifice maybe, like, Lethal Protect. There's other ways to kind of get that damage off a character that might be more exciting or cheaper, or I don't know. I just don't see putting this card in a list.
I don't think you're wrong. I think this is on my level of like Marked for Death. Honestly, I think you stepped away when I said this. it's a card I would really consider putting in my roster if we had 10 slots. But at 8, I just don't think it's going to make it. But I do want to point out, how do I say this on this guy? This is different than a lot of the other ones because with the addition to a lot more high quality attacks in the game, like what did we just talk about today? Cloning Bank? Like if he goes up and fires his genetic splicing and you escort to safety one of the two guys out of the beam, like congrats, there's like no attack now, so like it messed up the math on his whole plan. And so like with a lot more AoE attacks becoming playable now, because they're kind of dialing it in where AoEs become useful, I think it has more value than it had before. Because they don't get the action back. You can save one of 2 people in an AoE and there's no reprisal. Obviously, Gwen's ability is just better, but you have to include her as a character, which is a whole different problem. And like I said, this isn't going to be beating anybody's door down for like number 1 pick or anything.
It's useful. I mean, it has its little niche, and if you want that, you definitely can get it. I like the fact that it is in a direction of one of your characters, and it's not just set. I mean, you know where Gwen's going to drag you.
Exactly.
I put this around a 4 or 5. Like that's where I would land with it.
Whoa! I start with the numbers.
I'd start with the fucking numbers.
Don't you number creep me? All right. I am going to say 5. I think it is worthy of a 5.
I think this card is probably I'm going to say it's a 4, just because I don't think it's restricted to character. I think to reliably play and get a lot of value.
I'll shift it to a 5 just because I think it does have value. It's not a garbage card, so I'll go for 5.
Nice. I thought. So Jeremy cut out for a second. I thought I lost his rating, and then Parker went 3rd. So I was like, "Oh no, what was it?" I was about to ask. All right, moving on. Parker hits with the next one.
Extreme Conditioning.
Man, everybody thought
Unaffiliated.
This was awesome when it came out.
Yeah. I love the card art, by the way. It's Spider-Man bench pressing a bunch of appliances while Taskmaster looks on in the rain. A reactive card. When a character begins a move action during its activation, it may spend 2 power to play this card. If the character advances, it may use the long movement tool during this movement.
So, I think if they had reprinted this card today, it would say also gains wall crawler. I don't, or maybe it should cost 1. If this card costs 1, it wouldn't be nearly as bad. Just 2 is a lot, considering a lot of the 2-cost move cards allow you to actually move, not increase your movement speed. So the times that this is better than a card that actually lets you move is basically only when you're holding an object that says you can only move once, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, because all those say move actions. And all the other stuff, I think Aim Lackey's is the only one that says takes a move action. Never mind, I hate this card. It's just worse than Climbing
Gear. I think that's the problem. As soon as Climbing Gear came out, it pretty much replaced this.
It came out at the same time.
Well, it replaced it at that point too, didn't it?
Yeah. But everyone was playing it for like 2 weeks, and then I was like, that card sucks. And then they were like, I guess. Alright, so 32 Climbing Gear. Climbing Gear came out at 30. I'm pretty sure 32 and 30 came out at the same time.
It felt about the same time.
30 is Bullseye, Daredevil, and Punisher, Taskmaster. Yeah, because it was Kingpin, Punisher, Taskmaster, Daredevil, and Bullseye, I think. Yeah, so it was literally the same day they came out. It's much like the power creep in the 41 box set that is Cyclops and Storm. It's like one of the 2 models in the box set had huge power creep over the previous model in the box.
Yeah, it's hard to beat the fact. I mean, You know what? It works great as an additional movement card. So you would have climbing gear and also this.
Yeah.
Um,
As long as you're willing to spend 5
guess.
power and 2 tactics cards to get your fucking model where it's supposed to be.
Listen, Black Dwarf is slow as fuck. You
He's not
need to
that
get
slow.
him in there, and he's got to do his shit.
Everyone was super frothy to fucking play this with Magneto, and I'm like, why don't you just play climbing gear? Because you know what Magneto doesn't want to do? Spend an action to move.
Sounds
what
horrible.
The whole point of a movement card is not to spend the action to move, I thought.
Yeah.
Apparently I was wrong. Alright, I'm giving this a 2. It's bad. I could probably be talked up because it actually has value, but man, I do not like this card. The number of times I would consider this card over any of the other movement cards is like 1%. Like, it's super unlikely.
Yeah, that's tough, man. It's tough because Aim Lackeys is a card. So what is this compared to? So Aim Lackeys, climbing gear. What else is another one?
Tactical analysis. I mean, if we're just talking about movement cards, yeah, tactical analysis, Aim Lackeys, climbing gear. I think there's one more.
Either way, I'm going to say 4 because it does create a little bit of space and that it does something. And if you wanted to put both of them in a list, I could imagine that. But it's less than average because most of the other ones are better.
So it says anytime you advance, not if you take a move action. So if you have something that allows you to advance multiple times, then it could be okay. Oh wait, when a character begins a move action during its activation, it may spend 2 as a reaction. So you have to do it during your turn, and you have to do it with, well, I mean, that's not really a problem doing it when you're moving. But it has to be part of a move action. So you couldn't even play this if you were like using aggressive.
No, it just switches. It switches your slow to a long.
It doesn't.
I mean, that's all there is to it.
It doesn't, because let's say, for example, Zemo activates and uses charge. He could play extreme conditioning, even though he's already a long mover, and then later in the turn, if he attacks with Steel Rush, he could move long as part of Steel Rush. Because it's any time they advance, they use the movement tool long. No, hold on.
Okay, that's still
even worse?
I don't know.
This is even worse.
I don't think that's
because
true.
It doesn't state the end of the duration. It's just saying for that specific move action. So it does
it changes your slow to long.
It does only work on a move action, and it's only for that move action. This card sucks.
Kingpin moves long one time. That's what it does.
Yeah, except he doesn't.
Black Dwarf long one time.
I actually think this is, in my opinion, like maybe worse than any other card we reviewed so far.
No,
because at least anger management, is there a card in the game that does exactly what anger management does?
Tactical analysis.
Okay, it's exactly the same thing, only worse?
No, it's tactical analysis is infinitely better. Not tactical analysis, sorry, advanced R&D. Anger management says any I'll read it because it's just so bad. It's hard to. It's got so many restrictions on it. Anger management. Okay. So it is an Avengers only card. Any non-Hulk character can spend 3 while within 3 of Hulk can spend up to 5 power to play this card. Hulk takes that much damage and then gains that much power. So because turn 1 it's advanced R&D. But it has to be played by a non-Hulk Avenger model in an Avengers roster, and Hulk takes 1 damage. Yeah. And it only gives power to Hulk. It's so bad.
Okay. So that's absolutely terrible because it's punishing, and the card we're talking about is not punishing. But
the point of it
is a really good example of I think it gets extra demerits for existing in the game and not doing anything better than the other cards that give movement, right? Yeah. It actually is worse in many, many ways. And the only way we can think of it being better is if you're playing it with another movement card.
Yes. Hold on. No, it doesn't work with other movement cards. That's what we found out.
Oh, that's right. It doesn't.
Well, I guess if you played Aim Lackeys and then your only move action was Aim Lackeys, then you could argue that it's... But let's be honest. Aim Lackeys says take an extra attack is what Aim Lackeys does. is really what it does, because you're going to use that move action you spent as an attack action now.
Yeah. No, my point was saying extra movement is in you have a low squad and you need more than just movement card, not both at the same time. Again, it does a thing. It does a thing.
No, yeah, but it does a bad thing. 2.
It only costs 2.
Give us your own rating. Don't argue with mine. Get out of here.
What's your rating?
2.
2?
It's bad.
I'm gonna say 4.
No.
4.
You're just trying to argue me up.
I'm not.
Numbers inflation. Don't make us fucking vote you off the island. There's penalties for number inflation.
We're on probation.
There's numbers for penalties. Don't mock up your numbers.
Parker, solve this.
I'm looking at Aim Lackey. So Aim Lackey's is MODOK spends 3, choose an allied character anywhere. That character may perform a free move action during their next activation this round. Tactical analysis is the active character can spend 2, choose an ally within 3. They immediately advance short. Avengers Assemble, obviously. And then the last one is Climbing Gear. Active character spends 3, makes an immediate move short, and gains Wall Crawler for the rest of the round. This card says the active character spends 2, and then as a reaction to them taking a move action, they get to move long. This time only. Fucking hot garbage.
I'm actually giving this like a 1.5 since we don't do those. I'm rounding up to 2 because it's
round
not as
down.
bad as the 1, but I think it's just barely better than the 1. I think
You have to round
really
down because Jeremy's number creeping to a 4.
4.2.
Okay, well, if I am 100% ready to give this the 1. The only reason why I considered not to is because the other card there was Anger Management, and that one like is actively like that's playing with like you're shooting yourself in the foot. So
Jeremy, we gave Professionals a 3 out of 10. Explain how Extreme Maneuver or Extreme Conditioning is better than Professionals or Gamma Launch. Like that's not possible. Like how is this a 4?
It works on anybody. You just need 2 power. The rest of those are like random characters that you probably wouldn't take together all the time. I
hate you.
And you both can be wrong. That's fine. I don't mind it.
All right, so that gives us a 2.3 with a 1, a 2, and a 4. So we're gonna round down to a 2. And so Jeremy, that's 1 demerit.
1 demerit?
Mark it. We'll fucking put that in the
if I get
podcast
2
notes.
demerits? How many demerits does it take to get to?
Pretty sure it's 72 demerits to get 1 citation.
I just don't want to get to a citation.
So we're at a 2, and you're on thin ice here, buddy. If you
great.
no more numbers inflation. You can't say a higher number because somebody else said a lower number. That defeats the entire number system. And if numbers don't work, what are we doing here?
Next.
Yeah. I'm going to rate this one a 1 just to fucking spite you.
The next card is Face Me. Unaffiliated active card. During an allied character's activation, it may spend 3 power to play this card. Choose an enemy character within range 4 of this one. Advance the enemy character at speed towards this character. After the advance, the chosen character's controller may make 1 attack with the chosen character. I believe Jeremy would rate this one, what, an 8? A 9?
18. This would be an 18 on the Jeremy scale.
Don't get involved in this part. You don't want any of this shit. This is between me and Brandon.
You don't want none of
fucking
this
here. You don't want none of this,
You're right,
Bobby.
You're right. I peacefully bow away.
That is Dewey Cox. You don't want none of this, Dewey Cox. The other movie that, John C. Reilly was in. I love that movie. Nobody even knows that movie exists.
It's great.
Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
You don't want none of this. Make you feel good. Maybe I do. I think I do want some of that. Face Me, Brandon, go.
Oh yeah, this card allows you to pay 3 power and move an enemy model. So it's very good. There's some other words in there. I don't think they're super important. So this is basically Deception, but it was before Deception. So it's choose an enemy model within 4, advance said model, but instead Deception works if they don't have a friend nearby. This card, they get to make an attack after you move them. They don't have to attack you. They can attack anybody that they want. That's legal. But generally this is played with people like Venom or Sabretooth or Thanos that don't mind getting attacked and sometimes prefer it. And they'll use it to basically save a move action. Because it's like, get over here, and they come and attack you. The cool thing about them attacking you is they trigger things like So Many Snacks and Untamed Force. Lets you attack them back. You can also trigger... you also just get power from it. People like Wolverine also might like to play it, because they're going to heal a decent amount anyway. There are a lot of characters like this, but it is a niche card. This is not a generically good card. But if you have someone I just want to finish this real quick, sorry. If you have someone like Sabretooth that you want to use it on, it's actually really good, because you don't have to move them in melee range of yourself, and Sabretooth only has range 2 attacks. And so you can really abuse it versus some characters.
I think it's 100% true. Like, it is a niche card for some characters, but there's a wide variety. I will say there's one thing about the card that you really want to pay attention to, which is it says after the advance, the chosen character's controller may make one attack with the chosen character. It doesn't have to be on that one you really wanted them to attack, right? So if your Sabretooth is next to another character that only has 1 health left, you probably don't want to play Face Me, because then they'll just finish off your other character. What's that?
I said that.
Oh, I thought you said...
Don't even listen to the words I say.
No, I did not. I did not hear that.
Okay.
The one time that I've actually seen this be really useful is with Ghost Rider. I really like it with Ghost Rider, because if your opponent comes to attack Ghost Rider, well, then they're feeding into your deal with the devil. Like, go ahead, wail on Ghost Rider. But if they come in and attack a friendly, then Ghost Rider's getting power, maybe punishing them for their crits. So it's a really nice card for Ghost Rider. It gives Ghost Rider a control effect, I think. Is kind of what it says on it. So I really like it with Ghost Rider.
Cool. Yeah, it's actually a fairly long list of characters at this point that take advantage of this card.
Mm-hmm.
Card is usually number 10 or 11. My list of 8 I get to take. It always goes in the pile, but usually doesn't get taken. I really like it. I wish I could take it more. Good.
Yeah. I know I've said this before. I really hope they increase the amount of Tactus cards in your roster. Or they need to move to their rotating, like, these cards are legal kind of thing, like a different format. Because if it was like, well, you can only play Tactus cards with the Spider-Man symbol, you can only play Tactus cards with the X-Men symbol, it's like, well, then it actually becomes a choice again, even though it'd be less fun because it's restricted. It'd be more fun because list building would get more interesting again. And you would have to choose which of the 1-2 punches you're going to play with.
Right. Either one.
I actually really like this card. This is a card that's really powerful if used correctly, but is hard to use correctly. So this is exactly where I like game balance, is powerful effects that take effort and intelligence to pull off. It's not just like, I play advanced R&D, and then like the thing happens.
You could say it's a tactic.
Yeah. Where do I want to put this? I don't want to put it too high, because it is hard to make work, but it is good when it does work. I want to say 6, because I'm going to look at glass half full. When this card actually works, it's pretty awesome.
I think it always has a space to work, especially if you save it towards the end of the game, which makes me want to put it at a 7, because it will get you the victory points to win the game. I mean, it can pull out if you need it.
I mean, hell yeah, if you're going last and you're about to win, and you're just like, hey, you move off the point. It's like, well, I kill your guy. It's like, that doesn't matter. It's like, I don't care. I just wanted the points.
You could save that card to like turn 5.
Also,
like, it's a thing.
I don't know how many people know this. If you have 2 people like base to base on top of a point and you play this card, you can advance them through you out the back and get them off the point. And then they can attack you, and you just like, whatever, you're off the point. I do not care. All right, Parker, we need a number.
There are so many characters that benefit from being attacked now, like either passively or actively. I think this card is a 7 now. I think it maybe it didn't used to be, but I think it's just getting better, more value over time.
Jeremy, power creep prevails. The number is 7. Next up on the docket.
I've been accurate every time. Exactly right.
Except you were double the last one you said you were right on. All right, I don't think anyone plays this next card, so we should probably just skip it. What do you think? We'll just give it a 1 and move on.
Well, I was actually going to say the opposite. Can we just say what we all know the answer is and move along? The card is Field Dressing. It's an unaffiliated active card. I don't know if you guys knew what it does, but it says a character within range 2 of a dazed ally character can spend 4 power, removed the dazed token, and 1 damage from the allied character.
That's not very much damage. This is probably the worst healing card in the game, Parker. It only works on dazed characters.
Yeah.
And it only removes 1 damage. Where are you?
And it has to be your active turn.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Worthless. Costs 4 for 1? Patch up is way more efficient. You might even say 4 times.
The character has to be within 2. Yeah. What kind of Machiavellian setup are you going to be
actually,
able to,
a lot of healing stuff does have to be within 2.
Yeah, but I mean, this seems like a Rube Goldberg machine, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
got some real Sherlock Holmes shit pulled off right here.
Yeah.
I don't know. Should we put this at a 10? I think it's lost a little bit of efficacy. I mean, I think we've talked about this card enough in the podcast previously, so it's really just what do you want to say about it right now as far as its rating? If it's not,
I think this should be the next card that is banned.
Mm-hmm.
Start there.
So, do you think it should just flat be banned, or do you think that we should ban it because we're going to make a more fair version?
Correct.
Okay, so you think it needs to be replaced with a more fair version of this card?
Correct.
Okay. And not just that this mechanic should not exist.
Correct. I like the mechanic. I think it should be super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Be not hard to do. Like, I don't even care if there's a model near you. Like, it could be some sort of like antidote serum that costs like 8 power from combined characters or something. Like, this is pretty easy to do. And like we've said before, it's game changing. It swings the game. If both players don't have it, it's a problem. I think it's a feel bad card. I think it doesn't have any place in the game. There's plenty of spikes and cool shit that happens. If you play long enough, you know that it's going to happen on both sides. The game doesn't need this card.
How about, hypothetically, we reduce the cost down to 2, and the active character has to play the card. And so you could wake somebody up on your action, but then your opponent gets the opportunity to activate somebody.
I don't think it would be a viable card at that point, though.
You don't think so? Even if you have like bodyguards and stuff?
Nah, they get camped. I'm pretty sure they get camped. Like if it was, if you need a guy dead,
they only have 1 turn to do it, though.
That's true. Sure.
Because
I like that version.
You could like force your opponent to spread out, and then it's more of a 2 versus 1 kind of problem. Because like, all right, well, you dazed me. It's like, all right, well, I field dressing him. He's back up. Now what? And you're like, oh, well, shit. Like, it would mostly be useful to make sure you got your activation in, but it wouldn't be able to, all right, well, I'm just going to immediately go with him anyway. And there's nothing you can really do about it. It would be like end of turn they get to activate, basically, because they have to wait till you were done killing all their people. Yeah, I agree. I think it's too good in its current incarnation. Definitely cannot get unrestricted. Probably there's certainly cards on the restricted list that are nowhere near as good as this card. So I think it has to be a 10, right? Is there any valid argument for a 9?
I think the one main like death knell for it to be a 10 is how many games have we seen or played that the timing of field dressing is the reason why the game resolved the way it did. It was like that was the game. You're like, oh, I timed field dressing correctly. Cool. I know I've been playing this game for 2.5 hours or whatever, but really all I had to do was time field dressing correctly.
And you didn't even do it on purpose. It just happened. Like I accidentally, the situation for field dressing being perfect landed in my lap, and I said the words field dressing, and I won.
Yeah. That's like how it works. That's how it happens.
And then on the flip side, you're just like, well, I just need to pull off field dressing to even it out now. And it just never lines up. There's always a problem. And you like they go to attack you, they don't even damage you. It's like, I only have 3 power. Like you go to attack them, do 0 damage. You're like, like I just need 1. All right, so 10 it is. Okay. The only reason I was thinking we might not put it at a 9 is because I know Jeremy is all about this mantra of only cards that win you the game are useful. And I know that I consider activating dazed models a good way to win the game, but I don't know that everybody does.
I just think it's one of the most feel bad cards in the game.
Mm.
I mean, it's up there on because
it's like
how many. I mean, honestly, how many times have you got ready to do it and you're like, "Ooh, they didn't realize this was about to happen."
Yeah. No, my favorite, and I recently it's happened. It's like I field dressing MODOK, and he was just like, "Oh, I didn't realize that was going to happen." And then it's just like the what was starting to look like light at the end of the tunnel for them just immediately like collapses on their head. And I'm just thinking now, what was the story I wanted to tell? It was so let's say hypothetically, Magneto gets moved into your army, does a bunch of damage, dazes a bunch of your people, and then you play all according to plan in your power phase. You steal the initiative away from your opponent, and you're so excited you put everything into your best character, you take down Magneto, and then they just immediately field dressing, activate Magneto, all you've got, kill everyone on your team. And you're like, awesome. Yep.
Been there, done that. Seen the movie. Hated it.
Yeah. It
just has never felt good. It never feels thematic. It never feels good. It's never funny. It's never happy. It's always like, well, shit. Mm-hmm. Every time it happens.
And there's always that feeling of there's nothing I can do about this because they're circumventing the rules of the game, which is why it's so good. It's like, people know why it's good. We can probably stop now.
But one more thing I will add to this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the all you got / field dressing on like Hulk or whatever. That shit still exists, people. That can still happen, even though it's crazy. Mm-hmm. Stuff still can happen.
Yeah, field dressing works on the Hulks, if people don't realize. Because they gain the Daze token, the ruling that they don't flip happens in the cleanup phase. And so you can go in on the Hulk or She-Hulk 100%, kill them 0 to 20, and then there's like, just kidding, Doctor Strange plays field dressing, Hulk activates with full power, full damage bonus. And you're like, uh-oh. And then he just like one-shots 3 people, and you're like, uh-oh. And then, whatever, this sucked.
Easily healed them back to like 6 or 8. Like,
yeah, because if Doctor Strange is sitting on a mountain of power, then, he could use his healing power and throw out a patch up, and you could throw out the field dressing. Like, that's literally the list I played. It was just Doctor Strange patch up, field dressing, pentagram. And it was like, let's go. That's a list, right? And it worked. I won several games just because people didn't know how to deal with Hulk that doesn't die.
Oh, also Hulk's immune for a while.
Yeah, the other thing is you do the Hulk goes all in and plays all you've got the turn you go through the portal. And then they're like, oh, I'll kill him. Wait, he's taken 0 damage and is dazed. And then later on, Wong double moves and teleports through the portal and plays field dressing at the end of the turn. And he just removes the Daze token after all your guys have gone. And you're like, shit.
Bads all around.
Cool. All right, next up. We'll probably just do, let's see, how many of these we're going to do? What's our time at? We're at that. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, we're going to do through number 60. All right, let's go ahead, Parker.
Follow me! Unaffiliated reactive card. The active character may spend 6 power to play this card at the end of its activation. Choose another allied character within range 3 of the active character. The chosen character immediately activates.
I really like this card. This is one of the the core set cards, I'm pretty sure. And it was really popular like the first week because Red Skull got so much power, people were just looking for ways to spend it. And then it pretty much immediately fell off. And now it's kind of like dregs of the game, and it's only used for really weird combos. But it's actually a pretty cool card, because we always talk about like the power of field dressing is being able to do something you're not normally allowed to do. Well, activating 2 characters is kind of the same way. This has just basically been replaced with all you've got.
You know what's weird is it costs 10 for criminals to spend and grab initiative, whereas this only costs 6 and will probably grab initiative.
Yeah. Well, will not only get you initiative for the following turn probably, but it will also allow you to double activate, even if you don't have the priority. Double activating, if they go once and then you go twice, it's no longer an advantage for them, because you can just double team the next guy that's supposed to go and, probably take them out. And so you probably got more done than they did. The problem being that, massive 6 power cost is pretty hard. But we always looked at it as early turn plays. Like, oh, you turn 2, you want to play it, so you basically need Red Skull. But this is fine later. Like, you can do this on turn 3 or 4 when, like, your people have already been dazed. Like, think about it from a criminal perspective. You could play all according to plan and then follow me if you had enough power. And, like, all of a sudden, like, everything's weird.
Yeah, it's a cool card. It's one of the few that you look at and it's like, that's really powerful. And it costs 6, which feels about right. And it's within 3. Okay. This is pretty much how a tactics card should look.
You can also look at people like Magneto and MODOK also can pretty easily get 6 power by the end of their activation if you're being conservative with spending. Because once MODOK gets on a roll, he pretty much just has 10 power always. And then Magneto can almost guaranteed get to 10 power during his activation if he just doesn't spend it all throwing stuff. And so being able to double activate those 2 back to back, it's like, what could you not accomplish?
A lot of killing.
Yeah, and then next you Cosmic Invigoration, and then all you've got, and you just get 4 activations.
Jesus
like
Christ.
Back to back to back to back. And then your opponent just says, how do I make an eBay account? All right. So what are your guys' thoughts on this card?
I already gave my thoughts. It's great.
Parker?
I think it's kind of the card. I feel like it's a little card that could. Like, it seems great, and like you said, it's got some, wombo comborific kind of thing. So if you ever see a character, you're like, oh, I want to activate this and then activate this because it's going to get cool bonuses with each other, or I'm going to be able to do this interesting maneuver like hopscotch thing, or I'm going to be able to really kill somebody from exactly the combination I want. If you have like a cool pair in mind, I think it's got a place. But we've talked about it before, how this card, unless you have exactly a plan that you feel is going to happen consistently, it'll just sit on the board face up a lot.
Yeah. A lot like Face Me, this is a card you have to have a plan. From the time you consider putting in your roster, you have to have a plan.
Right. So if you have that really cool plan, it will make your dreams come true. Don't let your dreams be dreams. Play Follow Me. Like, it will happen for you.
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Just follow me.
Just do it.
Just do it.
All right. I feel like, see, this is what advanced R&D is to me. Like, this is exactly what advanced R&D should be. And that's why I don't respect the card. And everybody's like, advanced R&D is amazing. It's like, it's just Follow Me. It's just a gimmick. Like, you're spending a card for a one-time tempo benefit. And it's like, okay. Anyway, I'm going to give this a 4. I think this is very unlikely to make a roster, but in the right situations, it has good value.
I would love to say it's in my top 12. Just isn't. Makes it land somewhere around a 4 or 5. So 4 is fine.
4. Parker?
I say it's like the definition of a 4. It's not even a corner case. It's like a very small corner case.
Agreed. That's why I gave it a 4. Moving on. Parker, hit us with our next
Grievous Wounds. Grievous Wounds is an unaffiliated reactive card. It's super effective. Everyone should play it. It's a really good card. During a character's activation, when it targets an enemy character with an attack, it may spend 1 power to play this card. If the target character is dealt damage by this attack, the target character cannot have damage removed from it this round. Brandon, tell us why this card is really, really good.
1. Get this piece of shit out of here. We're done. It's a 1. We're moving on. I am so mad at this card.
But Brandon, look what it says. It says that it'll prevent healing, something we really wanted in the game, right?
I have played this
card.
Why
are you saying 1?
I played this card 4 times, and then I burned it, because it never did anything. It never once did damage. All this card does, it says, take up a Tactics card roster slot, take up a Tactics card squad slot, spend 1 power on a character to guarantee your attack does 0 damage. That's what this fucking card does. There's no fucking reason to ever play this card. It is the biggest jinx in the history of jinxes. You can play this card with MODOK rolling 18 dice on an attack. It would do 0 damage. Fuck this card. Fuck Grievous Wounds. Fuck everything. Everyone should be able to play like field dressing for free. Like, what the fuck? I don't understand why this card requires damage. Why? Why does this card require you to deal damage? I want to know who designed this card. In the meeting was always like, well, what if you had to deal damage with it first? Isn't that a good idea? I would rip their toes off with pliers. Like, fuck, I'm so mad about this card.
So this is a meta card, right? It's designed to respond to create the wheel, the spinning wheel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you see a lot of field dressing in your meta, you see a lot of patch up in your meta, you see a lot of Doctor Strange in your meta, and you go, I'm going to play this meta card because it counters this thing. But then by putting that really big restriction of having to deal damage with it, by not making it, it's not actually a meta card. If you look at any game that's ever made with meta cards in it, the meta cards are always fantastic value because they only work on one particular part of a game, a very small part. That if you see it getting abused and you really don't want it to get abused, you can play this card and you're not going to get abused. But this card doesn't do that. It doesn't protect you from the abuse at all. It just gives you a chance to sometimes be protected by the abuse. And that's not good enough. It's not good enough by half.
All it had to do is say for the round, it would be just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't. It's ridiculous.
Delete the first sentence of the second paragraph, and we're fine. And this is exactly the card we wanted.
I don't get how they were scared of that.
I don't either, because there's some healing effects. There's 3 heal cards that aren't character specific. We've got Patch Up, Field Dressing, Med Pack. There's another one, right? Am I forgetting one? Because second win, We Are Groot. I think there's one more healing card.
X-Force cards.
There's X-Force cards that heal people. That's not a heal, it's prevent damage.
They prevent, yeah.
Because, you're obviously only trying to do this to characters that are already hard to kill, right? Because if they weren't hard to kill, you wouldn't give a shit. It's just so annoying.
Right.
Not to mention that it only works on one attack. What if it was response after dealing damage to an enemy, play Grievous Wounds, they can't be healed till the end of the round. That would be perfect. But no,
that'd be fine.
We get this bastardized, broken version that doesn't do anything. Not to mention, I move up and play Grievous Wounds. I bodyguard? Okay, cool. Your move. It's immediately deleted by any actual rational thought person. It's not a good card.
Yeah. I really like, if they wanted to if they were scared and said, let's make them deal damage, then just make it reactive after you deal damage. Because then it's conditional rather than I'm going to spend it and power to do nothing. That's
so frustrating. And all it does is guarantee you lose at that point. Because you've moved in, you've made an attack, you spent power, you spent attack this card, all for nothing. And you're just feeding into the field dressing fucking momentum train at that point. Because you know what is also a really good way to gain an advantage in a game, in addition to playing field dressing at the right time? Your opponent wasting a tactics card. That's pretty cool. I hate this card so much.
But for the grace of one, conditional phrase, right? It's one part of the sentence.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words. 10 words on this card. Just delete that sentence, and it's a perfect card. Everything before the comma, go away. It's because this is exactly right. We've talked about this for so long. Healing cards are overpowered. They all got restricted, and anything that's not restricted is very hard to play, or is very restricted based on who can play it. And the meta didn't change at all. If anything, we see more healing now than we did then.
Right.
It has utterly failed, and no one plays this card. Because they've been burned by it too many times. Not to mention, we're too freaking restringent on how many tactics cards we get to play. I hate this card. I'm done. I've vented.
Do you give it
what's
the
sad
one?
Is I mean, what's sad is I hate field dressing so much that it makes me think I need to still take that goddamn card just in case. But just like you're saying, sometimes it's a wipeout and it makes you just want to sell all your shit.
This card does not prevent them from playing field dressing. It just prevents them 30% of the time from playing field dressing on that character. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
It's not even on the character you target. It's on the character that ends up getting attacked. It's so done.
Seems like it's good. It just isn't.
Yeah, this is the biggest failure tactics card they printed. Fucking Heave-Ho was better received than this, because you know what Heave-Ho does? It allows a character that cannot throw terrain to throw terrain. You know what this card does? It allows you to fail.
It allows you to play with 7 tactics cards instead of 8.
7 and 4 instead of 8 and 5. Ugh.
Oh, God.
I'm filled with rage. Also, I want to point out, this is the only tactics card that I'm aware of that's been out for a reasonable amount of time, and there's a character on the artwork that we're not sure is being released.
Mm-hmm.
Executioner has no spoilers or teasers yet. I think he's the only character we've seen that is like I don't think he's coming. Although I'd be very excited to see an Executioner. That'd be a cool addition.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. Are you guys going to give me a rating?
I thought you started. I thought we talked about this.
He already gave
What did you
his.
say?
I said 1. That's the first
1?
word I said. I said 1 like 8 times.
Oh.
If you can make
I'll
up
give
dumb numbers, I can.
Fine. 3.
Even
3.
Jeremy can't give this a legitimate rating.
Yes, I did. 3 was legit. It was critical. Who you thought about?
In the words of Admiral Akbar, this card is a trap. But since it can succeed, I give it a 2. But that's the only reason why.
2 it is. Moving on. Hopefully we'll never say the words grievous wounds in this podcast ever again. Next card.
Speak of the devil, and he doth appear. Heave-Ho. Unaffiliated active card. If 2 allied characters are within range 2 of the same interactive terrain feature of size 2 or less, they may spend 1 each to play this card. Choose one of the characters to throw the terrain feature medium.
The only good thing about this card is the art.
The art is
Rocket
awesome.
Raccoon picking up a car. And Dr. Strange in the background doing like magic-y stuff. Like, get him, buddy! I don't think there's really anything to say about this. We've talked about this card a lot in the podcast. This is our gold standard for bad cards. It's not worth the effort. The only reason to play this card is because you're in it for the aesthetics of teamwork and like doing as cinematic things in the game. And so if it was like you're using this as a role-playing game, then yes, it has value because it's going to allow your guys like Punisher and like Luke Cage can like pick up a car and throw it at somebody, and that's like a thematic thing they might do in the comics. But it has basically no value. You would just play characters that can do that if you cared. So 2.
It's monstrously restricted.
Actually, no. This is the gold standard bad. It's a 1. This card is legitimately worse than Grievous Wounds. I'm just so furious at Grievous Wounds that I do not want. Like this card isn't a failure because it does what it's supposed to do. At least Anger Management is a failure of a card. So is Grievous Wounds. They don't even do what they were supposed to do.
I feel like we should use this card as like our training with weights on. Mm-hmm. Like you have to play this in one of your 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like unless it's a tournament, like you have to do this.
You can just say the words "play with 4 tactics cards." That's allowed. Like those are English words. I cannot wait for our fantasy draft league because oh man, it's gonna be so fun to play with handicaps. That's always the most fun is playing with bad stuff. And so you're like, you can only play with these 10 tactics cards. You're like, oh god, here we go. You're trying to like fucking sift for gold with garbage. You're like, please, someone do something.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's your number?
I'll go 2.
All right, so we have a 1 and a 2. Parker, don't let this happen. You know what this is.
This is the 1.
This is a 1. All right. Fucking Jeremy.
And
numbers.
the reason
we have to put a permanent -1 on all your numbers, Jeremy.
A 3.
-2 now.
Wait a minute.
The litmus
I think I saw
test,
this in a comedy.
The litmus test is have Jeremy rate Heave-Ho, subtract any numbers over 1 from all of his ratings. All right, 1 it is. Moving on. We're gonna do 2 more.
Okay. Heavy Firepower, unaffiliated active card. During a character's activation, it may spend 2 power to play this card. The next attack made by this character this turn, targeting an enemy that is not within range 3 of an allied character, adds 2 dice to the attack roll.
I very much liked how you started reading at one pace, and then every time the card got more convoluted, you slowed down and added a small diphthong on the end of your words. You're like, within 3?
Because...
like what is this doing? And you are exactly correct, because the most commonly asked question I get at the store is, how does this card work? Because they're always like, is it within 2 of me, within 2 of them, within 2 of an ally? Like, what is happening? This is one of those writing with like a image in your head. Like, you're writing it from the perspective of knowing how it works, and so you do not give precise wording. This is probably the worst worded card they have. So its function is you spend 2 during character activation. Miss 2 power plays card. The next attack made by this character, the person playing it, targeting an enemy that is not within 3 of any of their allies, you add 2 dice to the roll. So basically, if you're attacking somebody by themselves, you add 2 dice to your attack roll for 2 power. This card is terrible. There's a lot of add 2 dice cards. This one admittedly doesn't require a friend, but it requires your opponent to also not have friends. So I don't know. This is not a good card. No one's going to play this.
Yeah, it's really an outsider. It's weird. Seems like it should be good, but so like limiting on how you play that.
So the other notable ones that this is similar to is Unearthly Rage, which is same thing. During activation, spend 2. This character, if the character is within 2 of 2 or more enemies, you add 2 dice. So this is the opposite of Unearthly Rage. And probably also similar to Battle Lust. But Battle Lust is actually good because you add your size to the damage, and then you get to push the person. So Battle Lust is like the gold standard of add damage dice for generics. But yeah, it's just not a good card. None of the add dice cards are really any good. How when you have these cards to choose from, how do you end up at an add dice card? It's just not good.
Yeah, I always felt like the add dice cards, I wish they were fixed dice cards. Like, I wish that's what it was. I wish it gives me like rerolls.
Yeah, reroll dice on the attack. Like, that would be way better.
Right. Or if it wasn't reroll, it would even be like, your fails are successes or something like that, which they're starting to do with characters like Scarlet Witch. Like, things like that, I think would have been much more interesting. But the fact that it just adds 2 dice, you're just like, what? That's so poor. That's such a poor value.
Yeah. And obviously they're way more impactful on characters that have lots of dice mods. Like, Unearthly Rage honestly probably wouldn't be that bad on Magneto, but it's just like, you don't really need it. Like, the characters that can already mod don't need the help. And so it's like this catch-22 thing. Anyway, I'm giving it a 2. Has some value, just not good value.
7.
Jeremy, let's go. Come on. You're holding up the podcast.
A 7.
Yeah, but I need real
7.5.
Jeremy, come on.
It down. It's like a 3 or a 2. It's a 2.
2? All right. Parker?
I was also going to say 2.
2 it is. Last card for the day.
Heavy Ordnance. The other heavy card.
Yeah.
Heavy Ordnance says any character, active card, may spend 2 power during its activation to play this card. This character may use the attack listed above, which is a physical range 3 6-die attack.
Range 4.
Oh, I'm sorry, range 4. I misread. Range 4.
And
6-die
you're teaching our kids. Oh
god. You can misread instructions while you're teaching. This attack can only have dice added to the attack from crit results. And this character could not modify its attack dice during this attack. Additionally, this attack has the following special rule: explosive. Before damage is dealt, other enemy characters within range 2 of the target character suffer 1 damage.
So important points about this card are the explosive is not on a wild, it's just auto explosive, which is pretty rare on attacks. So it's actually not bad. It's actually good versus AoE targets. This was what I expected heavy firepower to do. And not what I expected heavy ordnance to do. And when we opened the card, we're like, this is shitty. Like, why doesn't it attack people? I think this is also the first attack card that came out that was actually playable. All the other ones were pretty bad up to this point. Do you know why it says you can only add dice because of crits? Parker, do you know?
Because they're the characters that can add dice?
Because Sabretooth is the greatest wizard in the universe.
Right.
Because if he picks up a spell book on the Montesi formula found, he can add 3 dice to it with his no mercy rule. And so he throws 9 dice energy beams, which is super unfair.
Jesus Christ.
I did that to Brian, and he was just like, you can do that. It says on an attack. This is an attack. So hyper beam, just like nuke 3 characters.
Oh my
Sabretooth
God.
is like, by the power of Grayskull, it just like energy beams everybody. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, so they figured that out real quick. Oops.
To be fair, his ability says no mercy. It's not like it says.
Didn't say claws.
Use my
no
claws
mercy
better.
with claws.
Yeah.
No mercy with
Goes-
fireball.
yeah, it It just says no mercy
Fireball.
with the wand of Watum or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Anyway, so those are the things I want to say about this card. I'm actually a big fan of this card. This is, I think, the exact example of what we're looking for from generic attack cards. Anyone can play it. It's actually useful because not only does it give you an attack that is 6 dice, but it's a range 4 attack. And I think a lot of people miss out on that point of it. Because there's a lot of people, it's like you run up and attack somebody, and they're like, I'll trickster away. What do? I play Heavy Ordnance and kill you. And you're like, oh, I didn't expect that. Or they do Lifesaver from, what's-her-face, Gwen, pull them to safety, and you're like, just kidding, here's my rocket launcher. And like, uh-oh, and you hit Gwen and the other person, and you're like, eat it, idiot. And you're like, oh. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this. Also, like, people
it's also a third.
Yeah, well, it costs an action. This card allows you to use the listed action. Attacks are actions. Maybe use the attack list above this activation. All of the attack cards say that. The only one that doesn't is Cruelty, which is a reactionary card to you not killing somebody. Right. So it doesn't give you an extra action, but it uses one of your actions. But people don't think about the fact that, like, how many times does Wong make it into your list? How many times have you been in a situation where you're like, man, Wong can't do anything. Like, just kidding. Wong has a missile launcher. Die. Yeah. And it's like, and he's like sitting back conveniently, and there's like a mosh pit in the middle. It's like, I could explosive on 3 people. It's 3 guaranteed damage for 2 power. How many cards do that? It's a very, very useful card, actually.
Especially even as useful as it is and as cool as it is, I've never used it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make that top 10.
I've played it in games, but it's so hard to make it in when you're playing like a for realsies list, because the top 10 Tactics cards are pretty obvious most of the time.
I was gonna say, if you were playing like a commons and uncommons game where you couldn't play the tip top cards, you'd be really excited to get this in like a draft format, right?
Oh yeah,
you'd be really excited to have this. You're like, what a fantastic value that I can play with any character. I love that.
That's for a different thing, though, because your characters suck in a draft format. Like, you need cards that make your characters better, and that's exactly what this does.
Yeah, but what you said, like, Wong is a great example of that, right? If you didn't know what you were going to get, or if you're playing with kind of a grab bag, or characters that didn't have a way to use all their power, like Hawkeye is a good example. Like, Hawkeye just has big stacks of power on him. Wouldn't it be nice to do an extra attack with Hawkeye?
Yeah, but he's already got a range 5 gun, and he can choose his damage type, and his gun's actually good. I look at this for more characters that don't have ranged attacks. Like, Sabretooth is a great example. Because, like, if Sabretooth isn't within, like, range 2 of somebody, and he's standing on a point, he really doesn't want to move. And so, also, anytime you're playing against somebody who has a lot of elusiveness, like, Quicksilver's about to come out. We're going to have another character that can evasive away from you when you try and attack him. And so if your option is, then I advance towards you with my second action, that's pretty garbage, right? And so it's like, oh, instead I'll just shoot you, and it's like nothing's going to happen. I like it.
This goes great with a.
It's not a. It goes great with
a Wong or a Lockjaw.
Yeah. Exactly.
They kind of reprinted it. It's almost the same as what's his face? Crossbones / Sin's gun.
Yeah.
That's a Tactics card.
No, yeah, this is very similar. They're very in line with each other. That one's just character restricted. But yeah, this is perfect for Lifesaver. It's like, oh, I watch you up, I punch you, he teleports away. Your second action, Heavy Ordnance, you shoot the dog and kill the person for free. Like yes, that's what I want. Actually, now that Lifesaver is big, Heavy Ordnance might see a comeback. Now that Lifesaver's a big deal. Just imagine how punishing that would be. It's like, all right, down this person, last minute save. Just kidding, Heavy Ordnance. You pull out all the guns, blah, just blow up both of them. Get out of here, stupid dog.
Also, you get that of Iron Man, just teleporting in the giant gun like Marvel vs. Capcom, just it just kind of shows up out of nowhere. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I give this a 5. I think if you played this with reasonable thought behind it, it has value. But it's not going to break the game.
Heavy Ordnance, 5/4. Because I never see it in the list. I just can't find room for it. But I think there's enough characters now that probably walk around and need a little bit of range, and it's probably pretty useful. I might try it now that we talked about it. I kind of like it.
Yeah.
So let's say 5.
I think, generally speaking, things we rate at a 5, you will not see played because of the scarcity of slots. And so if you say something's a 5, you're probably going out of your way to put it in your roster for one reason or another. Parker, what's your rating?
5 is good.
I actually love support models that hang in the back, and this is a really cool idea for them. Like, finally, a card for them, a rocket launcher. I give it I think it's a 5, yeah.
My rocket standing in the back can use a rocket launcher.
Obviously
not for rocket, but...
Yeah, but that's the funny thing is, as soon as I said, well, Hawkeye always has extra power, you're like, well, that's just because already shooting with this really good gun. I was like, yeah, you're right. But Wong has needed to kill things lots of times, and he wasn't going to do it.
You actually should take Heavy Ordnance with Rocket. Do you know why?
Why?
Oh, because Groot's there, and Groot can't move forward and has a range to attack. And so Groot could just be like, surprise rocket launcher, and you're like, oh, and the Groot just starts blowing people up. Think of a deadly duo turn when you've got Rocket, or you've got Groot with full power because he's been getting beat on, right? Because he's Groot. And then you got Rocket standing behind him, and you go first with Groot. He plays Heavy Ordnance, attacks, blows up on everybody, then plays Follow Me, lets Rocket go. Rocket and Groot both play Deadly Duo, and then you just literally waste the entire table. Like 2 versus 4, like just go. That could be super fun. Yeah, Groot is a perfect example of who wants to play this card, because he's commonly like unable to move forward because he's tied to Rocket, and then also has no range attacks. All right, next up, no more. All right, we're done for the day. Next time will be fun though. We're going to start with a good one.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So that's going to wrap up our ratings, and Parker has a comic corner for us. So Bob Ross voices. Let's listen to the comic corner.
Yeah. So I've actually got a comic corner today that I have to be real cryptic, because every once in a while Marvel makes a really good detective story, and the comic I'm talking about today is a Marvel event called Original Sin. In Original Sin, spoiler alert, the Watcher is murdered, and that's like the very opening act, is the Watcher is murdered. And I honestly can't tell you a whole lot more about the plot after that, because it is just a cross-title, multi-character investigation about who would possibly kill the Watcher, who would have the motive and the means to kill such a powerful cosmic entity. It includes a lot of your favorite comic heroes. The Avengers, of course, are tied up in it, along with mysteriously some of the kind of gray heroes like Winter Soldier, White Queen, Black Panther, who kind of get recruited at one point to be kind of this shadow organization that go on their own investigative arc. And of course, everything comes back together at the end, where you find out something really cool about the Marvel Universe that was going on behind the scenes the whole time. So if you just like a good detective story plus the Marvel Universe, you'll really like Original Sin. And I don't want to say anything else about it. The art is also really, really strong. It's really fun to read. It's very good dramatic arcs that move forward. It's great.
Cool. That sounds like an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the show portion of today. This has been Brandon.
And Parker.
And Jeremy. He foes okay.
No, it's not. Gave it a fucking 3, you idiot.
3.5.
And this has been The Gang Gets a Demerit.
Holy shit! I did get some of this video of this guy is deep. He's doing like some deep sea cleanup stuff. There's obviously like some pieces of like a boat or a rig have hit the bottom of the ocean, and so he's like off the continental shelf. He's in one of those super deep sea suits, and like there's a camera on him, like watching what he's doing. I'm guessing somebody's like talking to him and trying to help him find out where all the trash is. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a damn swordfish just jams into the back of his suit, like clearly trying to hit him, like trying to spear the shit out of him. And he, I mean, he's in the bottom of the ocean. He can barely move his arms up and down. And the thing is just like wang, 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 just trying to spear him. So, like, it's behind him. What is the guy? So the guy climbs up into his submarine cage thing that brings him up, and the swordfish is attached to him. He climbs all the way up the cage, swordfish still attached. That's insane. He's 300 meters below sea level. 300 meters. Jesus.
That's 900 centimeters, correct? Because it's 100 is centa.
It's 3,200 decaliters. It's decaliters.
How many stones?
Parker, you're a teacher.
How many stones
decaliters.
deep is that? I think that's 12
stones deep. That's at least 1.7 fathoms. I think, as a crow flies.
900 meters would be 2,952 feet.
So that's barely a half mile, Parker. What are you trying to impress us?
Hold on a second. I just realized I said 900, but it was 300.
You said 300.
I don't know why
I said 900, and that's why you got confused.
Yeah, thank you. So it's 980 feet, nearly 1,000 feet down.
They went way deeper on the abyss.
That's true.
You knew it was a one-way trip.
You did.
You knew it.
That's approximately 100 floors.
Because floors are 10?
Ish, yeah.
Every podcast, I realize how smart you guys are. And
I don't know if other people do this. Like, this has been a pastime in Kansas City gaming groups for so long of just making a conversation seem completely unintelligible to a normal person, and then just talking around them until they realize that they don't know what the fuck anybody is talking about. Because nothing,
I don't know.
Everything's
so
dumb and broken that nothing is like fucking makes any sense at all.
Well, if it's anyone's first time listening, welcome.
First time listening, last time listening.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy, I like that you're drinking from a copper mug like it's a little teacup.
Oh, it's my Moscow Mule.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I
delicious.
thought you couldn't have vodka anymore because I think the term was your body sucks. I think that's what you said.
No, it's cheap vodka. Cheap vodka was destroying me.
So now you have expensive vodka.
No. Just, not garbage.
I have not garbage. I supplied very good vodka when I made your mules. It was when you started bringing them to the shop and you bought like the gallon bottles of vodka for like $8. Yeah. You're like, let's do this. And then you're like, why am I dying?
Yeah, it wasn't good for me.
It was the turpentine, sourced vodka that you can't handle.
Yeah. Nope, that's my drink still. I still like the vodka.
Because all the ones I made at the Chiefs games and stuff, those were all with Reika vodka, and that stuff's pretty good.
What you made at the Chiefs game, the very best thing you made was that peppermint fucking hot chocolate.
Yeah, it's so easy to make.
That was the shit.
It's 3 ingredients. It's Nesquik chocolate milk powder, hot water, and then just peppermint schnapps. And that's it. And you can put any amount of peppermint schnapps in it. It doesn't matter because it always tastes the same. It could be like 50-50 hard alcohol and it doesn't matter.
Do you guys have your Chiefs tickets all lined up? Like,
Yeah, me and Jason have our 3 seats again this year with our parking pass already paid.
Okay.
I was telling Parker the other day that if you guys wanted to go Habsies on a ticket, that now would be a good time to tell me that before prices skyrocket.
Okay, how much?
We paid like $5.30 for a ticket this year per seat, which is really reasonable because like the first year we went, it was like $7.50. I want to say
that was a lot more
because we got it so close to the season. So like the longer you wait, it just starts scaling up because they want to guarantee seats beforehand.
I mean, I would do half a ticket if you're in, Parker.
I am not.
Lame balls.
You see that? You see that? That's why he's not invited anymore.
Not invited.
It's not game nights. He's not invited. Uninvited.
Parker, your probation has been extended.
Definitely.
It's like 1 step forward, 2 steps back every time Parker joins the podcast. It's
Okay.
like he immediately does something to give him -2 episodes of suspension.
Speaking of probation,
mm-hmm.
An actual thought, a real thought crossed my mind today.
I don't deal in.
I have this. I have this infection in my ear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, man, it's gonna be really hard to podcast tonight with this infection. I'm gonna have to try to make this work. It's like, but I can't. I'm on probation. Like that thought crossed my mind for half a second. I went, I can't miss podcasts. I'm on probation. Who knows what could happen if I miss another podcast?
No, you don't want to do that. Like
I'm already on Dodecatable.
Then you get triple secret probation, which you don't fucking want that.
Well, if you get to triple secret probation, every episode you get a demerit. And then if you get 3 demerits, you get a citation. And after a citation, you get an occurrence. If you get 3 occurrences, you get a verbal warning. After 3 verbal warnings, you get a written warning. After 3 written warnings, you have a disciplinary hearing. If you get 10 disciplinary hearings, there will be a resolution.
That was compressive. That was good.
What you've just described is almost verbatim how it works.
Yeah. That was really quality.
I mean, it's literally
if that was a stand-up routine, we would all have had to stop to wait for the applause. That was good.
That's literally just a quote from The Office. I mean, I expanded a bit. Yeah, no, it's when Dwight. So Jim becomes the number 2 in the office, and Dwight gives him a little notice when he comes in. He's like, "What's this?" He's like, "You're 5 minutes tardy. No one is unaccountable, Jim." He's like, "What is this?" "That is 1 demerit." And he's like, "What happens if I get more of these?" He's like, "Well, you get 3 demerits, citation." He's like, and then and he just goes through this whole thing. And then Jim's like, "All right, well, if you don't have 1 written, occurrence on my desk by end of day, you will get 1 disagulation." And he's like, "What is that?" He's like, "You don't want to know." And he's like, "Oh God." So he immediately starts writing up a written warning, because the way the whole thing works is like the written review is placed on the desk of their immediate superior for review, who is Jim. So Jim would be the one conducting his own review. He's like, "Yeah, I think I'll be okay." Anyway. We hired someone new at work today. Or not today, but this last week. And I quoted The Office, and she was like, "I don't get it." I was like, "Oh, it's a quote from The Office." She's like, "Oh, I don't watch TV." I'm like, "I don't
fired.
Yeah, it's like, fired. Get out. Don't
I was gonna say she is going to be very clueless to a lot of things that happen.
No, it's literally all day. It was just like I would say something, and she would look confused. I'm like, "Oh, right." Like, damn it. I quoted Always Sunny, Parks and Rec, and The Office like 8 times, and she was just like blank stares. Like, damn it, you're missing gold here.
It's rough. It's rough.
Yeah.
The other day I don't know what circumstance we got in this, but Sarah and I got to talking about it was about child beauty pageants.
Oh.
No, the child beauty pageants. And I immediately went to, I just said out loud, I met him at a titty bar, but I'm not going to touch your kids. I don't diddle kids. she goes, what? and so
we need to review this whole marriage situation real quick. Hold on.
She's never seen the show.
Right.
She's never seen the show. I just started to describe some of that episode, and she was laughing so hard she was crying. I was like, you don't understand. Because you know who Danny DeVito is, right? And she goes, yeah. I go, picture Danny DeVito
dressed as a corpse. Dressed as a corpse
by a mortician to look like a dead guy, because how could a dead guy diddle kids?
Yeah.
That was his logic. Because he's just trying desperately to look like he's not going to diddle kids. And she goes, that sounds amazing. I was like, I think you would. I told her, I was like, I think you would hate almost all the show, but some of the things I think you would think are just amazing.
So I actually wanted to say something about that. So anyway, I was talking to Richard yesterday, and he was telling me that he called his parents to check in, and they told him that they started watching Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and they were really excited because they were liking the show. And his parents are very normal people, and so I think you'd be surprised how many kinds of people will like the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you should give it a try. What's the worst thing that happens? She'll break up with you.
Parker, your wife is just too nice. I feel like a show like that.
But that's why it's funny, because they're terrible. They are terrible people. That's why it's funny.
She's just too nice.
She really likes everything Charlie Day is in. She thinks Charlie is in all the movies she's seen, and he basically is that character in every movie.
Yeah,
so it's
he's
not
typecast. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I think he's. So I don't think. I think it'll just be. I know it'll turn it off. It's like some of the extreme depravity that'll turn her off. Some of the extreme depravity will turn her off. But I think a lot of it she would just think is hilarious. Like we don't I don't diddle kids like that. That's wonderful. I think she'll just think it's fantastic. It's one of those things that she is a really nice person, but she will she will like really cutting, even sometimes crude humor, if it has a respectful approach to it. If it's purposely disrespectful, she struggles with it. A good example is Ricky Gervais. Ricky Gervais is purposely respectful while saying anything he can think of, right? But he's purposely very respectful. And so she really likes Ricky Gervais, even though he says things that are horrible. He doesn't mind. I'm sorry, she doesn't mind. She takes it. We just got done watching Ricky. I was watching a Ricky Gervais special last night, and I did not expect her to be like, "Oh yeah, I've already seen that one." I was like, "What? I would not think that you would enjoy this." He speaks so disrespectfully about a lot of things. He speaks so, crassly about a lot of things. She goes, "Yeah, but he makes it a point to be respectful. He makes fun of the fact that people take this too seriously." I guess that's the trick. She is very nice, but she doesn't take things too seriously. So she'd probably like Always Sunny. She'd probably realize it's just a joke.
No, they're very. They intentionally play both sides of every point, because most TV shows have basically 2 points of view on political debates, and it's we are going to completely avoid them, sidestep the issue entirely, or they pick a side, right? And they dig in, and they basically just make the other side look demonized. Well, Always Sunny goes out of their way to take on every political debate there is, and then dig in on both sides super hard. And so you get they represent both sides of every point, which is great. Because it doesn't matter what your opinions are. You get to hate the other side while also making fun of your own flaws.
Yeah. That is I love the gun episode. The gun episode is fantastic.
The gang gets hot.
Yeah.
It's I'm still hot. And by the end of the episode, they've switched sides of the gun debate, and they're dug in on the other side even harder than they were originally. They're like, no, there's only one way. We have to get more guns into schools. And the other side's like, no, we got to get the guns out of school. And then they switch. And then they're arguing their other points. It's so good.
Right.
That's also the first time you realize Mac cannot do karate, which is great. Okay. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we get into it? We got.
I'm ready to go. I'm going to fail really fast tonight.
Okay.
That's good.
Is that because your ears infected with failure?
Yeah. It like hurts right now in a sincere way. It's very distracting.
All right. Oh shit. Oh, I know. Oh, no, that won't work. So since I have restarted my recording, my timestamp is off. So I guess I'll do a note here. Timestamps.
You want me to tell you like what my temp is?
No, because we can't do that every time I need a timestamp. I'll just do timestamps off the backup recording. I'll just put a note in that I've done that, so I'll remember that I'm going off of the entirety of the thing and not just the timestamps here. All right.
Irritated.
So Parker, are you gonna actually come to the store this Thursday and play games with me? I promise I won't give you a wet willy. But only for tomorrow. If you don't come tomorrow, it's back on the table.
If I can get to bed like really soon right now and this healed and better, then yeah, if I got something in the tank tomorrow, that sounds good. But I really need to. I can't. It's draining and it's awful. It gets so much worse at night. Like right now, it's throbbing.
Mm. Oh no, yeah, pain gets so much worse at night when you're trying to go to bed because your body relaxes and it's all you can focus on.
Well, you should come up. Tomorrow's my birthday.
What? You didn't tell me that.
It is?
Yeah, because I'm an adult man. I don't give a fuck.
I do the same
Well,
thing.
technically today's your birthday then, right?
That's true.
I messaged Carl one day and I was like, "Hey, Carl, you want to hang out today?" He's like, "Oh, I can't. I got some stuff to do after work." I was like, "Oh, okay." And the next day, he was like, "You didn't fucking tell me it was your birthday." I was like, "Well, you didn't ask." That seems like an odd piece. I don't want to be like, "Hey, it's my birthday." Like that just seems weird. And he was like, "Well,
hey, you want to hang out?"
I would have not done
busy.
laundry if I knew it was your birthday." I was like,
"You're like, it's my birthday."
Believe it or not, Carl, we can hang out whenever we want. We're adults.
Just any time.
Yeah. Alrighty. Cool. Well, we had a decent pre-ramble, so we will go ahead and wrap it up here. Thanks for joining, everybody. Hope you had fun.